at Eurovision.
That was Steve Rosenberg ending this edition of From Our Own Correspondent. I'm Pascal Harter. The producer was Polly Hope. And we will be back next week with more of the real lives behind the news headlines here on the BBC World Service.
That was the BBC programme From Our Own Correspondent.
Good morning, Manitoba. It is Monday, September 29th. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in for Marcy Marcusa this morning. Let's say hello to the team. Joshua Tyfair is our technical producer. Abby Adiemi is our show director this morning. Brad Lillies is our YouTube live stream producer. And Heather Wells is here as well with news headlines. Good morning. We are working at getting Heather here on the air. In the meantime, coming up today on Information Radio.
Boyko died after suffering a medical emergency during a match at his charity event on Saturday. The club says the 54-year-old was someone who inspired and motivated others. We're going to hear more about that. Also, Muslim and Indigenous people came together yesterday ahead of National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, or Orange Shirt Day. The Islamic Social Services Association hosted a gathering at Canadian Mennonite University. We're going to take you there in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
Thank you very much, Heather. That is CBC's Heather Wells. Coming up today, as I was mentioning on Information Radio, tomorrow is the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, a day which remembers the impacts of the residential school system. We'll meet a 13-year-old grass dancer and hear how he's honoring residential school survivors and those who never made it home. Also, turning 100 years old is a significant milestone for people and for religious denominations. Just ask the United Church. Our faith contributor, John Longhurst, will talk about the significant challenges facing the United Church in 2025 and if there will still be a United Church 100 years from now. As well, a smashed window, 2 missing paintings, one valued at over $8,000, and a thief still on the loose. In the 8 o'clock hour, we'll take a closer look at the Winnipeg Police Service's hunt for an Exchange District art thief. For these stories, some weather updates, music, and more, you can stay with us here on Information Radio. A quick look at our current weather conditions. 15 degrees here in Winnipeg at the Forks. We are looking at a chance of showers today, forecasted high of 24 degrees. Sunny this morning, mix of sun and cloud with a 30% chance of showers. Late this afternoon, we will have updates on your weather coming up.
On cue. Singing is a heavy responsibility.
You got to imagine that the worst thing that can happen to a singer is they lose their voice. That's what happened to the Montreal artist Patrick Watson. He'll be here to talk to you about how his voice came back, about his brand new album, and how working with Leonard Cohen taught him what a good singer actually is.
He's a great singer because each word weighs 1,000 pounds.
Q with Tom Power this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. U.S. President Donald Trump is hosting Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House. Trump says a deal to end the war in Gaza is close. But today's meeting comes on the heels of Netanyahu's blistering speech before the UN General Assembly. Netanyahu spoke out against nations that are recognizing a Palestinian state. Canada is among those countries. Willie Lowry joins me now from Washington. And Willie, what do we know about the plan from the White House?
Well, the 21-point plan reportedly calls for an end to fighting and the release of all hostages within 48 hours of the sides agreeing to the deal. Now, Israel would then begin a phased withdrawal from the Gaza Strip. Under the plan, Hamas would have no role in any future governance of the enclave, and Gaza would at first be administered by Palestinian-led technocrats under the guidance of an international body created in consultation between the U.S., Arab, and European countries. Now, the plan does allow for the possibility of a Palestinian state at an undetermined time in the future, and that's something that Netanyahu recently rejected.
What is at stake for Israel and the U.S.?
Well, for the U.S., it appears to be about saving face. President Trump came into office confident he could end this conflict on day one, and of course hasn't, at least not yet. And he says he's a deal maker and has already ended 7 conflicts by his count. But the big ones, the wars in Gaza and Ukraine, have so far eluded him, and this would be a major achievement. For Israel, this is a war that has persisted now for nearly 2 years. And this deal would see the hostages, there are believed to be around 20 living still in Gaza, returned home. And that's a major objective of Israel's. Hostages have become a real flashpoint in Israeli politics, with deep dissatisfaction among many over the government's handling of the war and of securing their captive citizens' release. This deal, if it does go through, would allow Netanyahu to say mission accomplished in a way. But again, deals have been close in the past, and it's the details, the fine print, that often scuttles them. And details for this plan remain somewhat light.
Thank you, Willie.
My pleasure.
The CBC's Willie Lowry in Washington. An attack on a Michigan church is being called a targeted act of violence. Police say a man shot at worshipers before setting the building on fire. At least 4 people are dead, 8 others are wounded, and up to 7 people have not been found. The gunman was shot dead by police. The CBC's Katie Simpson has the latest on the investigation.
And then we heard a big bang, and it blew the doors in the church, and then everything after that was chaos.
Paula Macer was one of hundreds of worshipers inside the Grand Blancs Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints when the suspect launched his deadly attack, ramming a pickup truck with American flags on it into the main entrance of the building, exiting the vehicle armed with an automatic rifle, shooting toward anyone in his path. In those initial moments of terror, Police Chief William Rennie says there were acts of heroism by many of the adults inside that church.
They were shielding the children who were also present within the church, moving them to safety.
As this was happening, the gunman also managed to start a fire using gasoline as an accelerant. The flames grew so quickly it meant first responders could not get to everyone who needed help.
The FBI is now leading the investigation and is investigating this as an act of targeted violence.
FBI Special Agent in charge Reuben Coleman says authorities identified the suspect as 40-year-old Thomas Jacob Sanford, a veteran of the U.S. Marines. He served 4 years and was deployed to Iraq in 2007. Police are pleading with the public not to speculate the motive as they are still investigating. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
Election results are in for Moldova's parliament. It is a victory for the pro-EU Party of Action and Solidarity and relief for Moldovans who were worried about Russian influence.
A lot of young people started to go vote, me included. I voted for the first time. And I think we have a bright future ahead of us.
Bravo. Russia is not doing a lot of good things. It's really bad.
This election was viewed as a geopolitical choice between a path to the European Union or drifting back into Moscow's fold. And although the data shows the pro-EU party will hold a clear majority, this vote was not without controversy. Officials are accusing Russia of running a disinformation campaign, a large-scale vote-buying scheme, and of planning to incite riots about the election results. Strong winds and heavy rain from what is now Tropical Storm Boloi is moving towards Laos. Boloi made landfall in northern Vietnam early this morning as a typhoon, and at least 9 people are dead. Dozens more are injured or missing. Officials say full communities have been devastated. Some infrastructure, as well as homes and schools, are damaged. This man says he has never seen such a powerful storm. He says his roof was shaking so violently he couldn't sleep. Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe is expected to attend a historic announcement in Isle-la-Crosse later today. Details are scarce, but tomorrow is the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. And Isle-la-Crosse was once home to one of Canada's oldest residential schools. Alexander Kwan has more.
For decades, the survivors of a residential school in northern Saskatchewan have been calling for justice. The school was located in the Métis community of Isle-la-Crosse. It operated for more than 100 years, with Métis and First Nations children forbidden from practicing their culture or speaking their language. school survivors were excluded from the Indian residential school settlements because it was determined the school did not qualify. The situation changed earlier this year when the federal government signed a $27 million agreement in principle. Michelle Leclerc, a vice president with Métis Nation Saskatchewan, spoke at the announcement in March.
In this settlement, Canada has sort of taken, we'll take 50% of the blame. Saskatchewan needs to take the other 50%, and they need to compensate our survivors.
Now, further changes could be on the way, with an announcement scheduled for this morning. Métis Nation Saskatchewan has only said that the struggle for recognition and justice may be over. And with Premier Scott Moe scheduled to attend, it could mean another step forward in the push for reconciliation. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
Ontario's Premier is known for making off-the-cuff remarks, but Doug Ford has commented on all kinds of issues, including the justice system, and lawyers say sometimes he may be crossing a line. As Sarah McMillan reports, Ford has recently waded into some criminal cases that are before the courts.
This wasn't an accident.
When Doug Ford spoke earlier this month about a head-on collision that killed an Ontario father, the Premier didn't mince words.
It was a murder.
The accused is facing several charges, including dangerous driving causing death. He is not charged with murder, and the charges against him have not been tested in court.
It's inflammatory to the case, it prejudges the case, and it's inaccurate.
Adam Weisberg is with the Criminal Lawyers Association. He says Ford should be more careful not to weigh in on cases that are before the courts. That fatal collision is just one recent example.
Man, once I'm on a roll now, did everyone hear about the story in Lindsay?
Last month, unprompted by reporters, Ford chimed in on an assault case in Lindsay, Ontario. And there's a high-profile example in 2021 when Umar Zamir, charged at the time with first-degree murder, was released on bail. Ford called it unacceptable. Zamir was ultimately found not guilty. Reporters asked Ford about his comments after the verdict last year.
At that time, I had limited information.
Lawyers say that's the problem. Weighing in without knowing the facts can contribute to misinformation, and
it can raise issues like the prosecution itself being compromised.
Lawyer Shakir Rahim with the Canadian Civil Liberties Association says there's also the risk of prejudicing a jury pool. He points to cases in Quebec and Ontario in the 80s and 90s that were nearly derailed because of comments from politicians. The Premier's office did not respond to our request for comment. Sarah McMillan, CBC News, Toronto.
You're listening to the Sistema New Brunswick Youth Orchestra perform Tchaikovsky. The average age of this orchestra is under 13 years old, and one of its members will be on his way to Carnegie Hall this December. 15-year-old Daniel Malia is from Elisiboktok First Nation, and he plays the viola and has been learning from Sistema instructors since he was 6 years old. This year, he placed third in the American Protégé International Talent Competition, and that's how you get to Carnegie Hall. That's World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in this morning for Marcy Marcusa. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. 89.3 FM, 990 AM on our YouTube live stream or anywhere on your CBC Listen app. Coming up on the show, workers at Canada Post are on strike again. We talked to political reporter Marco Vellotti about the political fallout from the federal government's proposed downsizing of the National Mail Service. Also, Muslim and Indigenous groups spent the day seeking and understanding and healing ahead of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. More on that conversation. But first, why negative stereotypes about older workers are costing companies. We'll talk to an expert on shifting work demographics about harnessing the skills of late career employees. It's time for news headlines with Heather Wells. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, northbound lanes of the St. James Bridge are closed right now. Police aren't giving us many details except to say they have been there since 4 o'clock this morning. Southbound traffic over the St. James Bridge is not impacted, but you cannot drive north on the St. James Bridge for now. Police don't know how long they'll be there. So once again, northbound St. James Bridge is closed this morning. Winnipeg's boxing community is mourning the loss of one of its fighters. United Boxing Club says Robert Boyko died after suffering a medical emergency during a match at its charity fight card on Saturday. The club says the 54-year-old was someone who inspired and motivated others. We'll hear more coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That is CBC's Heather Wells. Now here to take a look at the forecast, Abby Adiemi joins us. Good morning.
Good morning, Chloe. How was your weekend?
It was lovely. I got to go to the Pembina Valley.
Ooh.
It just, I don't know, something about the valley in the fall. It's gorgeous.
One thing I missed this season at the Low Farms is the sunflower. I didn't get to do that.
You
this
love
year.
those sunflowers, Abby.
I do love them, but I missed it this year.
Can you swap it like for pumpkins or something? Or
The good thing is I had to go to the Leaf to see the sunflowers and the garden there, so that made up for me not going to the Pembina Valley region. But for today, we're looking at a bright and mild start across the province. That's going to be bright. Most of the region seeing clear skies this morning. Plenty of sunshine in the forecast. Winnipeg right now 14. It is clear outside. The sunshine will last through this morning. Then we'll see a mix of sun and clouds later with a slight chance of showers somewhere in the mix. But the winds will be picking up from the east. By the midday period, we'll see temperatures climb to around 24 degrees. And that's the similar conditions we're seeing in most of southern Manitoba, the Westman, the Parkland, the Interlake region. Clear and cool start, but warming up to the 20s and 24s later. Up north, the powerful influence Thompson Churchill, we're seeing temperatures hover from 1 till about 12 degrees this morning, and most of the regions will warm up to close to 19 degrees. But for Winnipeg right now, it's mainly clear and 14. Now, talking about traffic, just as heard in the news with Heather, if you're coming from the Kinnaston end, you should try to plan your route accordingly, because if you're coming northbound St. James Bridge from Kinnaston, it's closed. So you need to go around that, plan accordingly. Also, watch out for lane closures northbound on Sherbrooke between Ellis and Sargent, and southbound on Carlton Street between Portage and St. Mary, because street maintenance happening there. And just expect the usual slowdowns. Route 90, Abenoja, making our way. The bridge has been having some makeover. You're going to see some traffic in Provincial, Archibald, the regular spots. You will find traffic there. Also, Regents Avenue, westbound curb lane is being closed for communication walk. That will be between 9 and 3, so you can still make a drive through. But just plan accordingly. If you see anything in traffic, let us know. 788-3093.
Muslim and Indigenous people came together yesterday ahead of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. The Islamic Social Services Association hosted a gathering at Canadian Mennonite University. It began with an honor song from drummers and prayers from members of both communities. There was also a pipe ceremony followed by games and other activities. Islamic Social Services Association Executive Director Shahina Siddiqui spoke with the CBC's Gavin Axelrod about the importance to reflect on the past and find some joy moving forward.
It's about children, and that every child matters. And for our community of what's happening in Gaza and with the children, I thought it would be a good place for us to come together, to be each other's support, to heal, and also celebrate the resilience of our communities, and send a message to the children of Gaza that we haven't forgotten them, that Canada knows what this means when children are targeted. So we thought, let's come together. Let's bring our children to play and heal.
In terms of a step for reconciliation, how important do you think it is to bring together the Muslim community and the Indigenous community here in Manitoba?
You know, the Muslim community comes from 54 different countries, 48 different cultures. and each and every country was colonized. So we are children, I am, of colonization, and so we know that the multi-generational impacts of colonization, of oppression, is still in our community. And so we understand each other, we understand what it means to have your culture, your language, your faith erased, your spirituality erased, or the attempt to erase. So I think we are naturally very good allies, and we understand each other. That's the main thing. And so Islamic Social Services Association, we have been doing this, as I said, for many years. We just did the first national Indigenous Muslim Solidarity Conference in January. And we had people coming from all over Canada, even states, people were coming because they had never heard of such a thing, that we would get together for this event, for a conference on our mutual understanding and learning and healing. So that's why we are here.
How important is it to you as an executive director of this association to have this relationship with the Indigenous community here in Manitoba?
Extremely important. They're always there for us. We had Indigenous people working with us on the Truth and Reconciliation, teaching us, and we teaching them. So it's mutual. We don't feel like we are alone, that we have partners in this journey of peace and reconciliation, but you cannot do that unless you reach out. And sometimes we shy away from that because we don't know how. Well, human to human, you don't need a map, right? You reach out, you offer your hand, they offer your hand. We share meals together. You will see today there will be an Indigenous Muslim meal, and also our children. When the children see that as an example, and you pass on that, hey, they may be a bit different, but why don't you find out what those are? Because you will find more similarities, and differences just make your mind broader. It's not a weakness. It's not something to fear. It is something to celebrate, because the Creator made us all different, in different races, different orientations, whatever, so that we may know each other and not hate each other, right? So all this is to defeat hate by standing together.
I'm sure there's going to be a lot of children of like different ages, and some may not be young enough or old enough to sort of understand, but how impactful do you think this is for sort of younger kids to be involved in this process of reconciliation?
I have 3 grandboys here who are volunteering, and the youngest one is playing in the thing, and they are comfortable. If you start young, that's when you build up the confidence and the relationship going further. So for us, it's passing over to the next generation, right? That here's the baton, carry it on, right? But we have paved the path for that conversation to happen. So for my grandsons, volunteering with Bear Clan, going to ceremonies, you can still be yourself and yet honor others.
That was CBC's Gavin Axelrod speaking with Shahina Siddiqui, Executive Director of the Islamic Social Services Association. This was the first year for the event. It also honored children in Gaza who've been affected by the ongoing Israel-Hamas war.
On This is Manitoba, we celebrate who we are, and we lean into the challenges here that can make this place even better. I'm Marcy Marcusa, host of This is Manitoba. On the podcast, we tackle one topic in a new episode every Friday. It's always about us, the news, and the people here. Get into some local listening. Find and follow This is Manitoba wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in this morning for Marcy Marcusa, who you just heard, and we're actually going to check in with Marcy. The reason that I am here is because Marcy and the Information Radio team are up in Opaskwayak Cree Nation for Communities in Focus. We're going to hear from Marcy about what the team is doing there and more about the live broadcast happening tomorrow from Opaskwayak. But coming up next on Information Radio, many workplaces have undergone radical transformations over the past 5 years. years, from the rise of hybrid offices during the pandemic to the advent of artificial intelligence. But other things have stayed the same. For one, how some companies treat and undervalue older workers, a mistake that our next guest says will end up hurting our economy. Lisa Taylor is CEO of The Challenge Factory. It's a workplace consulting firm. She's also co-author of The Talent Revolution, Longevity and the Future of Work. Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning.
So what changes have you seen in recent years that have had the biggest impact on older workers?
So there's certainly been a lot of changes in workplaces over the last 5 years since the first edition of Talent Revolution came out. And what has continued to be true is where the story of older workers and the role that they play in advancing our economies, our organizations, is really underwritten. We don't really hear a lot about it. So how they've navigated through COVID and the pandemic, what different choices they're making in terms of their work and their career and how those things intersect, what choices they're making in terms of how long they want to continue to stay working in totally appropriate ways. And now, of course, with the advent of AI, the role that they play, the significant role that they play in making sense of new technologies and really being on the leading edge of how they get implemented in ways that advance companies and our economy.
What stereotypes do we still see persist about employees who might be nearing retirement age?
Yeah, it's so interesting to me to see how pervasive these myths actually are and how damaging they are. So when the retirement age was set at 65, life expectancy was only 62. And now we have an 83-year life expectancy, but we still consider ourselves ready to retire, or we give signals to people that they really should start to move along when we hit our late 50s, early 60s. And so the stereotypes that still continue to persist are things like older workers are always more expensive than younger workers. That's actually not true. Or the idea that older workers don't have the capability to continually learn, including related to technology. That's also really damaging right at this moment in time when we've had technology integrated into our everyday life for more than 40 years. There isn't an older worker today that isn't technologically savvy because it's been integrated into their lives. And if they aren't comfortable with technology, it's not because of their age, it's because of some other factor.
So what do companies stand to gain by harnessing the talent of this demographic?
So a good percentage of our workforce falls into this category of older worker. And so if we don't have functioning talent systems, if we're not focusing on how we can continue to harness the wisdom of our workforce, use the creativity of our workforce, and make sure that we have strong culture and engagement right from the people that have been in the organization the longest, all the way down to those that are just joining the organization, we end up creating workplaces where we give signals that it's really not a great place to age and nobody's going to want to stay for very long. And that causes all kinds of career dysfunction and economic dysfunction all the way through the entire talent escalator.
Lisa, how can companies do a better job then engaging older workers?
So the first is just to recognize that for whatever reason in society, we're not comfortable talking about age and getting older. Individuals aren't, managers aren't, people wonder for their own career before they, go to have career conversations or to talk about these topics with other people. And so that recognition that there's really nothing wrong with aging and that we can be comfortable using words like older, there's nothing wrong with that either, is a good first start. The second is making sure that there are career paths, there are places that people can move to that align with your strategic goals, but also give people that are, maybe they've been doing the same job for 20 years and they don't want to continue doing exactly the same thing or do nothing. There's ways for you to continue to have them be within your workplace that solve some of the talent gaps that currently exist. The talent is hiding in plain sight right within your workforce, and having people move into new roles and do new things, especially as we look at AI and how it's transforming the world of work and what new roles that will create and how can we transition from where we are now to where we will be, is a really powerful way to use older workers.
What would you say to younger employees or folks who might be trying to enter the workforce and might be struggling to find a job and feel like older people need to retire to make room for them?
Yeah, so there is a really strong narrative in our society that we need to pit generations against each other or groups against each other. Polarization is appealing, and it's also completely takes us in the wrong direction. So this idea that the economy only has a limited number of jobs, that it's like a pizza with so many slices, and we need to have one group of people leave in order for another group of people to have jobs, is what prevented women from getting into the workplace. It's what causes dysfunction around newcomers coming into the workplace. Our economy is not limited in the number of jobs that we can have. And so when people are employed productively and when companies are growing because they're using their talent appropriately, the number of jobs increases. It helps our productivity. And what's been proven time after time after time in economic study is that this idea that one group needs to leave and the other group can come in doesn't work. In fact, when older workers remain productively employed in the workplace, because of the nature of the work that they do and the wisdom that they bring to it and the advanced level of the work, they pull younger workers into employment. So Canada has a significant youth unemployment problem, and we need to address it. But the solution does not lie in pushing older workers out. In fact, keeping older workers in productive, vibrant careers longer actually pulls more youth into the economy. It's a solution, not a cause.
Lastly here, Lisa, what advice do you have for workers who may be mid to late career and wondering how they can thrive at work?
Yeah, so it is tricky and tough. Ageism in workplaces and just in our own everyday life is so pervasive. And so one of the things is just to recognize that you do move into a new life stage, and including different ways of thinking about your work. You are not the same person at 58 as you were at 18 or at 23 or at 32 the last time you made a career change. And going through good career exploration, really thinking about what you need and want from work now, and where are there new labor market opportunities and opportunities within your own organization. Those are good conversations for you to have. And it's unfortunate that it's the workers that need to lead their employees into these discussions. It's why writing the talent revolution was so important, because that takes the burden off each individual worker one by one and says to organizations, here's a way systemically we can update the way we think about employment so it actually matches our entire lifespan, as opposed to when the retirement age was set at 65 and we only lived to 62.
Lisa, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
My pleasure.
Lisa Taylor is CEO of The Challenge Factory and co-author of the newly published edition of The Talent Revolution, Longevity and the Future of Work.
You treasure Tony Soprano.
What line of work are you in?
Waste management consultant. Adore Dexter.
Really? That's your answer?
And delight in Don Draper.
But what is happiness? It's a moment before you need more happiness.
But can the not good, the very bad, and the bad but not ugly actually sell you stuff? Advertising Antiheroes on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly.
I'm making some changes.
Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on CBC Listen.
The time is 6:29. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. I'm Chloe Friesen. Still to come, we will hear from Hallie Cottenham at our CBC Business Desk. We will get a look into how the Canada Post strike is impacting business owners. That conversation is coming up. Looking at some traffic issues out there. The northbound, if you're heading northbound on the St. James Bridge, well, you can't. So if you're traveling on Kenaston, it is closed on the St. James Bridge heading northbound. You will have to find another route. We're going to keep you updated on that issue here throughout the show. But of course, if you do see anything or have any updates, you can call us at 204-788-3093. It's time now for a look at your CBC local news.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it's 14 degrees. It's going to be another beautiful start to the day. Sunshine first, and a mix of sun and clouds this afternoon, with a slight chance of late-day showers today, maybe even a thunderstorm this evening. Today's high is 24. Winnipeg's boxing community is mourning the loss of one of its fighters. United Boxing Club says Robert Boyko died after suffering a medical emergency during a match in its charity fight card on Saturday. The club says the 54-year-old was someone who inspired and motivated others. Boxing Canada Executive Director Christopher Lindsay says this incident will impact boxers across the country.
Boxing Canada just reaches out with support for everyone in the community and certainly to his family and his club members in this difficult time.
Lindsay says Boxing Canada will do a review of the incident. United Boxing Club also says medical support at the event acted quickly and are not aware of any failures in safety protocols. First responders were also called. Well, as Chloe mentioned there, northbound lanes of the St. James Bridge are closed this morning. Police aren't giving us many details except to say they have been there since 4 o'clock this morning. Southbound traffic is not affected, but you cannot drive northbound over the St. James Bridge for now. Police do not know how much longer they will be there. Dozens of people were in Winnipeg hospitals waiting for a space in personal care homes over a 6-week period this summer, including 1 week where 89 hospital patients required a care home bed. That's according to weekly reports posted online by Manitoba Health. Doctors Manitoba President Dr. Nichelle Desilets says shortages of personal care home beds, doctors, and bed capacity in hospital all contribute to long emergency waits.
ER wait times are they're like a signal of the rest of the healthcare system, a canary in the coal mine. This represents a healthcare system that isn't currently equipped to meet patient needs.
In a joint statement, the government and Winnipeg Regional Health Authority say they know emergency and urgent care wait times remain too long, which they say can be frustrating. The statement says the province has a team in place working to reduce bottlenecks, speed up admissions and discharges, and strengthen alternatives to emergency care. Muslim and Indigenous groups seeking understanding and healing ahead of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, or Orange Shirt Day. An honor song and prayers at Canadian Mennonite University. Islamic Social Services Association Executive Director Shahina Siddiqui says it was important to reflect on the past and find some joy moving forward.
Let's come together. Let's bring our children to play and heal.
The event also honored children in Gaza who have been affected by the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. The National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, Orange Shirt Day, is tomorrow. Winnipeg police call it a case of road rage. A 35-year-old man was assaulted Saturday afternoon at Broadway and Donald. Officers say that man and a 27-year-old man got out of their vehicles and started arguing. Police say the 35-year-old was punched multiple times and fell to the ground. Officers then say the 27-year-old got a pair of brass knuckles from his vehicle and continued hitting the victim and the victim's vehicle. The victim suffered minor injuries. The suspect was pulled over a few blocks away and arrested. He faces numerous charges, including assault and possessing crack cocaine for the purpose of trafficking. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will visit U.S. President Donald Trump at the White House today. Trump will present his 21-point plan to end the war in Gaza. Guy Ziv is director of the Center for Israel Studies at American University in Washington.
I would say I'm cautiously optimistic, but an emphasis on the word cautious because there are still major barriers to a deal that remain the leadership of both Hamas and Israel.
The deal would include the release of all hostages held by the Palestinian militant group Hamas and the withdrawal of Israeli troops across Gaza. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. Well, the Toronto Blue Jays and their fans are headed to the playoffs.
They've been an amazing team. They've come back. So many comebacks all season. They had to win. I knew they were going to pull through and they were going to do it.
After the first inning, I was a little bit scared, but I had faith in them. They delivered.
They really did deliver. The Jays clinching the American League Eastern Division title with a 13-4 win over Tampa. It is Toronto's first divisional title in 10 years. As for who the Jays will face in the divisional playoff series, it's either going to be the New York Yankees or the Boston Red Sox, and that wild card series gets underway tomorrow. The Jays next play on Saturday. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Such a fun game to watch, Heather.
You know what? And I was driving back from Western Manitoba yesterday and had it on. So we were listening to it. It was so exciting.
Yeah, the fans, every time Alejandro Kirk stepped up to bat after his first home run, which became 2 home runs, people just went nuts. The energy, I can't imagine being in that stadium for that game.
Oh my God, it must have been so loud. And yeah, grand slam. He was incredible. That was his shining moment, right?
Definitely. Okay, looking forward to the rest of what the Blue Jays have for us. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
That is CBC's Heather Wells. Joshua Tyfair is our technician this morning. Brad Lilly's in charge of our YouTube live stream. Abby Adiemi, our show director, also keeping an eye on the weather out there.
Yeah, it's going to be a bright and mild start with plenty of sunshine across most of the regions today. Some clouds will definitely build through the afternoon. The southern regions will see warmer and mild temperatures, while up north it just stays cool and clear. But I'll call it comfortable weather for the start of the week. Winnipeg right now, 14, clear outside. Sunshine will dominate the day, and that would be followed by a mix of sun and clouds. Around the lunch break, a slim chance of showers in the forecast. The winds will become breezy from the east by midday, and we'll see temperatures climb to around 24 later. Down in the Pembina Valley region, Morden, Winkler, Altoona, Morris, all the way down to the U.S. border, we're seeing 11 degrees there, also enjoying some clear conditions. The sun will stick around early this morning, then later during the lunch break, we'll see a mix of sun and clouds roll in. Temperatures getting to 24, similar to Winnipeg. In the Westman region, tracking conditions from Brandon all the way into Nippo and surrounding communities, we're seeing 11, 12 degrees in some areas, depending on where you are. Clear skies there, expecting sunshine through the day. That return to partly cloudy conditions by the afternoon. It gets breezy at some point with the winds developing, and temperatures will rise to around 23, but it will feel humid with the humidex factored in. In the Parkland region, Duff and Russell, Roblin, surrounding communities, we're looking at a cool 3-degree start there. Clear conditions we're having. The sunshine will hold steady through the day. Light winds return easterly. Later, we'll see highs reaching a comfortable 22 for folks in that part of the province. Now we track it to the Interlake region. Gimli's at 14 right now with clear conditions. The day is also going to bring some sunshine and then a mix of sun and clouds, along with a slim chance of afternoon showers for that part of the province. You warm up to 23. The Par, Flin Flon surrounding communities, 8 degrees right now. It is clear there. We noticed some fog patches there earlier. That should lift as you get into the morning, leaving behind mainly sunny conditions with a few clouds later. Light winds becoming a gentle southeast winds later. We'll see highs around 19 degrees. Thompson is chilly at 0 at this time. We'll see some clear skies there. Sunshine will stick around. You will be warming to about 17. While in Churchill, we're looking at 7 degrees there. Cloudy skies this morning. Some foggy conditions are spotted there. That should lift as you get into the morning, and you will be warming to near 10 degrees at for Churchill and the York region. But Winnipeg right now 15 and mainly clear. And a quick note, still weather related. Maria called, she was just driving in along the Dickens Collar earlier, and she said she had to pull over because there's like a beautiful aurora in display this morning. I'm like, okay.
I'm surprised you didn't hop in your car and just leave to go see it.
If I had a backup, I would definitely zoom out this morning. But thank you, Maria, for giving us that one.
That's beautiful.
So we just take that into the transition to the traffic. Yes, northbound St. James on the bridge. If you're coming from Kenaston, it's a no-go. It's closed right now. Raymond actually called. He said he's noticed it involves 2 vehicles, but he can't really see much. We have emergency vehicles on the bridge, so you need to plan accordingly. Now, if you're coming from Academy trying to get on that ramp, the community mechanic called and said he doesn't know what's going on the bridge. So now, Raymond has already given us updates. Vehicles involved, he said it might be 2 or more, but some vehicles involved in some collision on that bridge. So if you're coming from Kenaston northbound, you might want to find another route. Now, northbound Sherbrooke between Ellis and Sargent is also down due to street construction, reduced lane, street construction happening, the maintenance there, and also Carlton between Portage and St. Mary. There's also construction happening. And elsewhere, the regular slowdowns, Route 90, Abinoji making out where the bridge has been, is getting some ongoing maintenance. And then Archibald through Provenche, you'll definitely be finding all those closures there. But if you see anything and you want us to know, give us a call, 788-3093.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
That is CBC's Abby Adiyemi. Well, 20 minutes to 7 o'clock, and Hallie Cotnam is here with the Business Report. Good morning.
Good morning, Chloe.
So you've got some updates on the dismantling of Hudson's Bay.
Yeah, it's in court today asking for permission to hold an auction. It wants to sell its royal charter to the highest bidder. Now, this is the actual physical document that formed the business back in 1670. It was issued by King Charles II, and it gave the Bay rights to this huge swath of land spanning most of Canada. And if the auction plan gets the go-ahead, bidders will have until Friday. Now, there are two conditions attached. The offer has to be at least $15 million, and the winning bid must promise to donate the document to a museum or some kind of public institution that will share it with others, including Indigenous groups. So we know there are at least two buyers interested in the Royal Charter, and both have deep pockets. A holding company representing the Weston family of Loblaw's fame offered $12.5 million for the charter and had a plan to donate it to the Canadian Museum of History. And then a competing offer from a company owned by David Thompson, the billionaire chairman of Thomson Reuters. He's willing to spend $15 million and would donate it, interestingly, to the Archives of Manitoba.
All right, we'll be following that story. And you have the latest on the postal strike.
Yeah, the postal workers remain off the job. The union representing 55,000 employees launched a nationwide strike late last week. Another blow for small businesses that rely on Canada Post to ship their products. And I have an example for you this morning. Lauren James runs a family-owned business selling model trains all over Canada.
It's frustrating. At least this time it's not Christmas and Black Friday and Cyber Monday. But now we have a service disruption with no potential restore date. And we still haven't fixed the root cause of Canada Post bleeding money and reduced services and clients leaving Canada Post. And there's parts of northern BC and parts of northern Quebec and parts of northern Ontario that is only serviced last mile by Canada Post. So you could use Canpar, FedEx, or UPS, but they still hand it off to Canada Post.
And James says he's losing $4,000 to $5,000 in lost sales every day that this strike continues.
Nike is reporting its quarterly earnings today, and you have a story about how it's giving its famous motto a Gen Z refresh.
Yeah, this is an iconic brand. I'm sure many of your listeners have shoes on as we speak with the swoosh, but it's struggling. It's going through a sales slump. It's warning that U.S. tariffs could cost the company $1 billion, but it has a big year ahead of it. It's got a tie-in to the World Cup, one of the world's biggest sporting events. So in part, it's got this rebranding, refreshing effort going on. It's tweaking its famous slogan. So you're familiar with "Just Do It," right, Chloe?
Of course, just do it.
Right. No, they're adding a Gen Z twist. Now, we can argue over Gen Z or Gen Z, but guess what the new motto is? It's "Why Do It?" Instead of "Just Do It," it's the Gen Z version of "Just Do It" is "Why Do It?" Company is hoping this is going to resonate with younger athletes who question tradition. According to Nike, "Why Do It," quote, reframes greatness as a choice, not an outcome. Not everyone is convinced that "Why Do It" is all that. Some say that it's risking diluting one of the most successful and influential marketing campaigns in U.S. history. The "Just Do It" slogan is just about 40 years old. Nike is considered to be underperforming, which makes it interesting to investors. And some analysts have their eye on it because they say that revenues could jump up $1.3 billion because of that tie-in with the World Cup. So the question is, why do it? Because you could make a ton of money on it. Maybe. No promises.
Interesting. Nike making us think a little bit. Why do it? I don't know at this moment. I'll have to think.
Just before you go out for your jog, you ask yourself, why do it?
Why am I doing this?
Right.
Hallie, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Chloe.
That was Hallie Cotnam with the Business News. Well, as Hallie mentioned there, Canadians got a big surprise last week. Postal workers launching a nationwide strike after Ottawa unveiled sweeping reforms, including scrapping door-to-door delivery and shutting some rural post offices. On Sunday, Cross Country Checkup asked the question, how does the Canada Post strike affect you? Is it time to end home delivery? Here's what some callers shared with host Ian Hannamansing.
So you have a birth certificate for your 6-month-old that's stuck in the mail. Tell us about your situation.
If I had obviously known that the strike was going to happen, I would have not put that very sensitive document into the hands of Canada Post. I would have did the passport application in person with my 6-month-old. I have a time-sensitive vacation in December. For now, I'm just kind of waiting in the sidelines to see what the government has to say in the next probably 2 weeks before I do anything drastic. We just need some sort of a heads up. I don't know how this shakes out, but I hope it's not like last year.
You're relying on Canada Post to get your medication.
Cortes Island is a remote island. We get our prescriptions normally from Quadra Island twice a week, and they arrive via ferry. So some of my prescriptions are fine, they just come over. But I have a specific one that can't be compounded at the Quadra pharmacy. So it has to come from Campbell River. No courier comes on ferries, multiple ferries. That doesn't happen. So that's now, they don't have an answer at this point. They don't know what they're going to do yet.
I am a Canada Post worker. And what I've been hearing from the union is Canada Post this, Canada Post that. They're doing everything wrong. I think a voice needs to be heard that not all the union workers are crazy about what the union is doing, and I'm one of them. I feel like I'm being held hostage here. We don't need all these little post offices. And yeah, some jobs are going to be cut if, mail carriers, rural post offices, but change needs to happen. I think the union needs to get out of the way and let changes be made.
Those were callers on Cross Country Checkup yesterday responding to the question, how does the Canada Post strike affect you? Is it time to end home delivery? You can download the Checkup podcast or listen on the CBC Listen app and at cbc.ca/checkup. We're going to continue this conversation shortly here with reporter Marco Vellotti. He's going to talk about the political fallout at the federal government's proposed downsizing of the National Mail Service. That is coming up shortly.
What kind of person takes on the law? Can they ever really know what they're getting into?
A really tough-looking guy came up to us and said, "Are you part of this gay case?"
My family started getting death threats. I wasn't able to go outside alone anymore.
I'm Phelan Johnson, host of See You in Court, a new podcast about the cases that changed Canada and the ordinary people who made history.
This is David and Goliath we have here.
See You in Court, available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to Lilith Fair!
In the late 90s, a groundbreaking all-female music festival emerged, led by Canadian artist Sarah McLachlan.
Promoter said, you can't put two women on the same bill. People won't come. And it put a huge fire under my butt to prove them wrong.
Representation for women in rock music wasn't there.
And worse, you're being pitted against each other.
Lilith became a freight train.
Catch the documentary that chronicles a pivotal moment in music culture. Watch Lilith Fair, Building a Mystery, for free on CBC Gem.
14 degrees here in Winnipeg at the Forks. Brandon, you're sitting at 12 degrees, clear skies. And in Thompson, it is 0 and clear at the airport. Well, Canada Post employees are continuing their strike this week. The job action is in response to the federal government's proposed shrinking of the mail service. The government plan would see the phase out of home mail delivery for millions of Canadians. Reactions are mixed, as we heard on Cross Country Checkup there across the country. For all the latest, we're joined by Marco Vellotti. He's the editor-in-chief of iPolitics. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So what's the latest this morning on the strike of postal workers?
Yeah, it's a bit of a Groundhog Day situation. If, you went into a coma last fall and someone said, hey, you woke up and you said, what's going on with the Canada Post strike? Very little has changed. The union and Canada Post remain at loggerheads. The issues are the same: wages, job security. Canada Post keeps pointing to its financial, footing as a reason why you can't make certain commitments. The union's pushing back, saying, this is unfair that you're punishing workers. And then, of course, the government's big announcement last week really kind of upended things and restarted the strike. But in terms of potential, progress, looks like we're going to be a few days away, if anything, from getting a new offer from Canada Post. They were prepared to present it last week, but after the government's announcement, they said we actually need some more time. So not only are we still not seeing any progress in talks, it looks like we're not even talking right now.
What are the reviews about the federal government's plan for the transformation of Canada Post?
Yeah, they are decidedly mixed. I think there's some, groups, there's some political parties, NDP is a great example, who are very upset about what's being proposed. Organized labor, especially public service unions, are solidly behind the workers, thinking this is going to totally disrupt, Canada Post operations. This is going to lead to job cuts. It's hard not to see that happening if you're going to phase out home-to-home, door-to-door delivery, if you're going to end the moratorium on the closure of Canada Post offices in rural and remote communities. These are pretty big changes. So, but on the other side, there's some groups, like business advocacy groups, obviously the Liberals, saying these changes are necessary because Canada Post simply is not financially solvent right now, and it won't be if we don't make some sweeping transformational changes. So definitely a lot of mixed reviews right now.
What are we hearing anecdotally from Canadians themselves?
I think it's really reflective of that kind of mixed bag, right? Where, I think Canadians are thinking, some of them are like, when's the last time I used Canada Post? When's the last time, I went to the mailbox or my community mailbox and, what I got in the mail wasn't something that I needed or was something that I could have done online, but maybe I haven't made the shift yet. Thinking, hey, when's the last time I ordered something online? Maybe I used Amazon. Definitely wasn't delivered by Canada Post. So kind of, maybe it's hitting with a bit of a, who cares from some Canadians, but then there's others, especially small business communities who are thinking, I use Canada Post a lot to deliver to customers. It's a really essential part of my day. It's more affordable. I simply don't have the access to a big fleet, and I can't pay for, some of these premium shipping options. And then some people maybe in rural remote communities where they don't have access to great internet, where, Canada Post is essentially that lifeline. So definitely, again, a very, very mixed bag right now.
Marco, what are we hearing from provincial and territorial leaders about their opinions on the federal plan for the transformation of Canada Post?
Definitely very muted. I haven't heard too many premiers kind of weighed in. I don't know if that's just a symptom of them not understanding where the Canadian public is on this. Newfoundland and Labrador's premier was the first kind of out of the gate with a response, and it was essentially that the federal government needs to consult the provinces and the communities that are going to be impacted by these changes. I'm sure many premiers will wade in and say something similar. This is something where last fall when you saw the strike, there was a lot of pressure from the provinces. I assume that will ratchet up. That strike last fall happened in the midst of the important holiday shipping season. As we get closer to December, I assume the pressure will mount to do something to end the stalemate. But right now, a bit quiet when it comes to the premiers.
You mentioned this earlier, but I've noticed personally a lot of the reaction I've seen online has been coming from small business owners. What have you heard about the impacts this could have on their livelihoods?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think for a small business community, for small business members, they look around and they think, well, I use Canada Post as the top way or maybe the only way that I ship things to consumers. So if I want to have an online footprint, which seems to be a necessity for so many businesses nowadays, I need Canada Post to be functioning. I need them to be shipping. I need them to be a reliable partner. This is the second time in like less than 12 months where once again, I can't use Canada Post to deliver. How is that going to impact me? Is that going to push my customers away from me to some bigger operations like an Amazon who, again, aren't impacted by this disruption? So a lot of concerns there. That being said, the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses, which touts itself as this advocacy group for small businesses, put out a statement, yes, warning of the impact of the strike, but also applauding the government's changes, saying these are long overdue and we can't keep subsidizing Canada Post to the rate we're doing now. So interesting that the small business community definitely is the most impacted by the strike, but also their advocacy group is applauding the changes the government announced.
How much of a problem is this standoff for the Carney government and why?
Yeah, it's tough to read the room right now, I think, just because it's such a mixed bag, and I think Canadians are just kind of trying to get a sense of what this means for them. So there's a potential that this is a nothing burger for this government, where Canadians maybe don't love these changes that are announced, but just kind of met with a bit of a shoulder shrug, like it's disappointing to see the service, leave. It's disappointing to lose door-to-door delivery, but things are changing, and Canada Post needs to keep up with those changes. But if we get into a situation like we saw with the Air Canada flight attendant strike, where public opinion is solidly on the side of workers, the Liberals have a minority government. They will need to, if they need to do anything legislatively on this Canada Post thing, they need to have support from at least one party. And if public support is so solidly on the side of the workers, then it's going to make it tough for them to do their job. So I think right now everyone's in a staying pattern, trying to read the room right now. But if the public sides one way or the other. I think that's going to determine how big of a political issue this is for this government.
What will you be watching for in terms of the politics of this issue in the weeks ahead?
The Conservatives. They are the big question mark. The Liberals are going to be in defensive mode, trying to justify the decisions on just how things have changed at Canada Post. The NDP and the Bloc Québécois, I don't see them changing their tune other than, Canada Post needs to halt these job cuts, halt these changes, and commit to keeping these public service jobs. The Conservatives, though, remember, they were the ones who proposed ending door-to-door delivery in 2014, and they had moved towards that. And then the Liberals won the election the next year and ended that. So they're in a bit of a tough position. They've clearly been supportive of these changes before. Obviously, they were in an entirely different economic context. So, I heard Gerard Deltel take a shot at the Liberals saying, this is your fault what's going on with Canada Post right now. But are we going to see them really kind of come out against it? If so, that's going to change the dynamics in the House of Commons, because the Liberals need a friend. They need someone to help them pass legislation. And the Conservatives are the only party that would be receptive to some of these changes that they're making at Canada Post.
Marco, thank you for joining us this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Marco Velati is the editor-in-chief of iPolitics. It's time to head to news headlines with CBC's Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, the head of Winnipeg Personal Care Home says fixing long-term care will help reduce emergency wait times. Reports posted online by Manitoba Health show the number of patients waiting in hospital for a personal care home bed reached a 5-year high for 6 straight weeks this summer. So we'll hear more about that. As well, northbound lanes of the St. James Bridge are now reopened again. Police, again, have not given us many details, but they were on the scene there for about 3 hours. But you can drive through again on northbound St. James Bridge. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 7:30.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
That is CBC's Heather Wells. And yes, thank you, Heather, for that traffic update. You can now travel northbound over the St. James Bridge. We are still looking at some street maintenance, some construction slowing down traffic on northbound Sherbrooke Street between Ellis Avenue and Sargent Avenue. As well, if you're traveling southbound Carleton between Portage Avenue and St. Mary Avenue, also some lane closures there might slow you down due to construction. Well, still to come on Information Radio, tomorrow is the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. It's a day which remembers the impacts of the residential school system. We're going to meet a 13-year-old grass dancer to learn how he's honoring residential school survivors and those who never made it home. That story is coming up on Information Radio. As well, we'll hear from Doctors Manitoba about what is causing long wait times in emergency rooms and the impact this is having on our healthcare system. Those stories and more coming up on Information Radio. 14 degrees here in Winnipeg at the Forks. 30% chance of showers late this afternoon. We will keep you updated on the weather and all sorts of other things coming up on the show. I'm Chloe Friesen filling in for Marcy Marcusa. World Report is next.
Today on The Current.
He checked my lungs. He said, it looks like you have a very serious lung infection. I can't believe no one picked up on that.
Canadians go to the emergency room for urgent treatment, but a lot of them end up leaving before they're seen by a healthcare worker, giving up after waiting for hours and hours. How communities are fighting for more ER doctors and nurses coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will be face-to-face with U.S. President Donald Trump later today. Trump says he is optimistic a deal to end the war in Gaza is near. It will be the first time the two leaders are meeting since Netanyahu's speech at the United Nations General Assembly last week. During that speech, Netanyahu condemned countries for recognizing a Palestinian state. The CBC's Sasha Petrusik has the latest from Jerusalem.
It's looking like we have a deal on Gaza.
For days, U.S. President Donald Trump has called the deal close. But today's White House meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu faces many unresolved issues. Aside from ending the war and releasing hostages, Trump's 21-point peace plan has introduced some new elements. An international body to run Gaza, led by former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair, peacekeepers to police the territory, and a so-called credible path to Palestinian statehood. That state has been rejected by Netanyahu.
But it has to be worked out.
He also faces strong opposition at home to other points in the plan, abandoning annexation of Palestinian land and even ending the war. Sounding less certain than Trump, Netanyahu spoke to Fox News on Sunday.
We're working with President Trump's team, actually as we speak, and I hope we can make it a go.
Trump says he has strong support from Arab leaders, but they've also asked for some changes. And Hamas hasn't even been formally consulted. In central Gaza, where the preoccupation is digging out from Israeli air and artillery strikes, the demand is much simpler. Just stop the war at any cost, says Ahmed Ali, but no one asks us. That war continues as Israeli troops advance through residential parts of Gaza City. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Jerusalem.
The state of Oregon has launched a lawsuit against Donald Trump's administration. The U.S. president announced plans over the weekend to deploy at least 200 National Guard troops to Portland. Trump says the move is aimed at combating crime as well as growing protests around immigration detention centers. This follows similar deployments in Los Angeles and Washington, D.C. Steve Futterman is following the story.
Tensions in Portland are growing. State and local leaders insist federal troops are not needed. Oregon Governor Tina Kotek says she's been trying to explain that to Donald Trump.
I told him in very plain language that there is no insurrection or threat to public safety that necessitates military intervention in Portland.
Yesterday, Trump took the first step to deploy troops. Initially, it will be only 200. The state of Oregon immediately filed a lawsuit. Oregon Attorney General Dan Rayfield.
At 9:32 this morning, we received communication from the governor's office that the president had invoked Title 10 to deploy Oregon's National Guard to the city of Portland. As of 2 o'clock today, we have a lawsuit filed in the United States District Court.
Last week in the Oval Office, Trump claimed the situation in Portland was dire.
Have you seen Portland at all? It's just people out of control. They're crazy. We're going to stop that very soon.
Leaders in Oregon accused the president of intentionally trying to escalate the situation. While there were violent confrontations in 2020 and 2021, the protests this year have been loud and constant. However, few have grown into actual physical confrontations. But since Trump's announcement, they are growing more intense. Steve Futterman, CBC News, Los Angeles.
Edmonton MP Heather McPherson has officially entered the race to lead the federal NDP. McPherson says she wants the NDP to be more inclusive and to listen more. Journalist Avi Lewis is also in the running. So is activist and author Eve Engler. And there is still plenty of time for more candidates to enter the leadership race before the end of January 2026. New Democrats are looking to rebuild after losing official party status in the last election. The preliminary results are in for Moldova's election, and despite allegations of vote buying and a Russian-backed disinformation campaign, the pro-European party appears to have been re-elected with a majority. Crystal Gomansing has more.
I think we have a bright future ahead of us.
18-year-old Anna Maria Orsu voted Sunday for the first time.
She says traveling around Europe showed her what the future could be like if Moldova joins the European Union, something that is expected to happen by 2030. Moldova's population grew divided after Russia invaded neighboring Ukraine. Many began pushing for closer European ties. Others wanted to strengthen old bonds with Russia. The election campaign was mired with allegations of Russian vote buying and disinformation campaigns. Vladimir Arseny says he voted with history in mind.
From my parents' experience that lived with Russia when they were little, and my grandma and my grandpa, as I've heard, it's not good with them.
With the pro-European Party of Action and Solidarity securing a majority in Parliament, EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen posted on social media, "Moldova, you've done it again. No attempt to sow fear or divisions could break your resolve." Similar statements were shared by French President Emmanuel Macron and Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky, who said Russia failed to destabilize Moldova. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
A huge wildfire is burning across Nambia's best-known national park. Etosha National Park is home to hundreds of species of wildlife, including endangered black rhinos, and an estimated 30% of its grazing grounds have burned. Helicopters and trucks with water tanks are being used to fight the flames. The government has deployed 500 soldiers to help with firefighting efforts. Nambia's Environment Ministry says the fire may have been started by a charcoal production business on a farm bordering the park. The federal government will end all of its hotel operations for asylum seekers tomorrow. It was a temporary measure during the pandemic. Now many families are rushing to find stable housing. And as Priscilla Kisang-Kwang reports, some Ottawa residents are rolling up their sleeves to help.
Flo, watch your step.
With a truck, furniture, and plenty of elbow grease, a group of volunteers at a local church is helping move some 20 asylum seekers into their new homes as the deadline looms to vacate their federally funded hotel rooms in downtown Ottawa. Denise Bonamo with Kitchissippi United Church.
We are on a crunch deadline, and our hearts really ache for the people who are going through this.
Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada was housing more than 130 asylum seekers in Ottawa as of mid-September. Hotel funding is set to end tomorrow. The government has always said it was a temporary measure. And with city shelters full, many families are anxious. Reverend Daniel Phoebe is an asylum seeker himself.
I spoke to the children and they asked me, are they going to be on the street?
Still, the group managed to help a handful of families secure stable housing in the last few weeks. Matthew House Furniture Bank is pitching in, supplying essentials. Executive Director Kaylee Brennan.
This gives them the opportunity to actually make that house a home.
Other residents and organizations say they're opening up their homes or helping secure housing. Otherwise, families risk being displaced again to provinces like New Brunswick, which struck an agreement with the federal government to receive more asylum seekers. That's why Phoebe hopes others will step up locally.
We are making a compassionate appeal to the IRCC and the good people of Ottawa come to our help.
Priscilla Kisan-Huang, CBC News, Ottawa.
You're listening to the Sistema New Brunswick Youth Orchestra perform Tchaikovsky. The average age of this orchestra is under 13 years old. And one of its members will be on his way to Carnegie Hall this December. 15-year-old Daniel Malia is from the Elsipogtog First Nation. He plays the viola and has been learning from Sistema instructors since he was 6 years old. This year, he placed third in the American Protege International Talent Competition, and that is how you get to Carnegie Hall. That is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. If you like the World Report podcast, follow us and tell a friend. It helps spread the word. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in for Marcy Marcusa. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. 89.3 FM, 990 AM on YouTube or anywhere on your CBC Listen app. Coming up on the show, ER wait times continue to put a strain on doctors and patients. Coming up, we will hear what Manitoba physicians are saying needs to change. Also, tomorrow is the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, a day which remembers the impacts of the residential school system. We'll meet a 13-year-old grass dancer who is the lead dancer of the Orange Shirt Day Healing Walk and Powwow. But first, the United Church has been a fixture in the lives of many Canadians for a century now. But will it last another 100 years? That conversation coming up. CBC's Heather Wells joins us now for a look at news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Winnipeg's boxing community is mourning the loss of one of its fighters. United Boxing Club says Robert Boyko died after suffering a medical emergency during a match on its charity fight card on Saturday. The club says the 54-year-old was someone who inspired and motivated others. Indigenous and Muslim groups came together yesterday ahead of tomorrow's National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, or Orange Shirt Day. The Islamic Social Services Association hosted a gathering at the Canadian Mennonite University. Lawrence Sutherland of Peguis First Nation hopes it helps people understand the impacts of the residential school system. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 7:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That is CBC's Heather Wells. Good morning, and thank you to the team on the show today. Joshua Tyfair is our technical producer. Brad Lillies is making us look fantastic on YouTube on the live stream. Abby Adiemi, our show director, also keeping an eye on your weather forecast.
Yeah, Chloe, it's a beautiful fall day. A mild fall day, I'll tell you, to start the week. Clear skies in most of the regions. We'll see warm temperatures today for sure. Breezy afternoon, especially down in the south. Looking at conditions in Winnipeg right now, we're seeing 14, 15 degrees, where it depends on where you are in the city. Sunshine will carry us through the morning, and then we'll see a mix of sun and clouds around your lunch break. Some winds will come from the east later. Temperatures will only warm up to about 24 degrees. Similar conditions we're seeing in other southern parts of the province. We're seeing temperatures between 4 and 15 actually in most of the regions. Most regions will warm up to 24, 25 later today, and they're kind of traces of showers and isolated thunderstorms in some areas that will be coming to some southern regions later. Further north, we're looking at -2 in Thompson right now, and we're seeing 8 degrees in other regions up north. But overall, the south will enjoy warm temperatures, while the north will stay calm and some cool temperatures will be spotted there. For traffic, the regular rush hour traffic beginning to build at this time. That incident we had northbound on St. James Bridge now over. The bridge is now open, so smooth sailing there, but constructions will definitely be slowing things down in a key few areas. Talking about that lane closure northbound on Sherbrooke between Ellis and Sargent, take that into consideration, and then southbound on Carlton between Portage and St. Mary. Street maintenance also happening there. Route 90, usual lane closures, reductions on Archibald, Provincial, that still continues to slow traffic down. And of course, on the Abano-Jamaican Bridge coming from Pemina, you'll definitely encounter some slow going traffic there. But do you see anything in traffic? Plan ahead. Let us know. 788-3093.
The United Church of Canada turned 100 years old this year. But will it last another century? What led to the creation of the United Church? What impact did the United Church have on Canadian life? And what is its future? Here to talk about that is our faith contributor, John Longhurst. Welcome back to the show, John.
Thank you.
So can you tell us a bit about why the United Church was formed in the first place?
Sure. A big reason for the merger, which was between the Congregationalists, the Presbyterians, and the Methodists, was to create a church that reduced duplication of effort and resources. There were little towns across this country that had 3 or 4 or more churches, all competing with one another, and that made no sense. And so they decided to get together and form one large denomination and to show Christian unity and collaboration. And that resulted in a large and growing church. It was the kind of church that had 1 million members by the 1960s. It was the largest Protestant denomination in Canada.
So we alluded to it in the introduction there, but the United Church isn't as healthy as it was 60 years ago. How has the church fared since then?
Well, by the end of the 1960s, things began to shift in Canada generally. Canada started on its path of becoming less religious, and that affected the United Church and many other denominations too. And back then, the United Church had, as I said, over 1 million members, but today it has just over 325,000 members. And according to recently released projections by the church, it could have only 110,000 members by 2035. And along with that drop in membership has come a drop in churches. About 50 United Churches close on average a year. And if that rate continues, there could be no United Churches left in the country by 2070. Now, it's easy to get stuck on those grim statistics now, but the United Church has had a lot of positive influence on Canada throughout the last 100 years. For example, it was a leader when it came to involving women in ministry. It ordained a woman in 1936, long before many other churches did so. And in 1962, it adopted a more compassionate approach to divorce, noting that it was sometimes better to be divorced than to live unhappily in a marriage. It was a leader in promoting peace in the 1960s and 70s, too, when it welcomed draft dodgers to Canada. And other ways it showed leadership was by being among the first to condemn apartheid in South Africa in the 1980s. Also in that decade, and famously for the United Church, it was the first to welcome LGBTQ plus people as members and as clergy, a decision that was widely criticized by many other church groups and also by some people in the United Church itself, and it resulted in a loss of members. I should also mention that the United Church was among the first religious groups to respond to the terrible legacy of residential schools, issuing an apology and establishing a healing fund. And that denomination also led in responding to the HIV/AIDS crisis, addressing climate change, and promoting ecumenical and interfaith dialogue.
So given all of that, how did the United Church then find itself losing 2/3 of its members over the past 60 years? You mentioned went from over 1 million to 325,000.
Well, there's a lot of reasons for that. One of which, of course, was the fact that it became the first denomination to openly welcome LGBTQ plus people, and some people left over that. But one of the things that is also remarkable about that is that every denomination has faced that subsequently, and many of them have also become welcoming of LGBTQ plus people. And those who haven't are discussing it openly now as well. The other thing that happened to them was that simply demographics. The baby boom went through society and it changed everything. We needed more schools, we needed more buses, we needed more of everything. And we also needed more churches and more Sunday schools, and they were full. But that baby boom is over now. And so that also was something that impacted them. But I did ask Kimberly Heath, the new moderator of the United Church, about those kinds of things. She was elected to be the new moderator in August. And she said that for a long time, members of the United Church sort of dwelled or dined out on the idea that they were the biggest and they had been the biggest for a long time. And that idea no longer works today, and it doesn't serve the denomination very well. But she thinks that even though the United Church is smaller, it still has a role to play. And when I spoke to her, she said the Bible has many examples of how God used small things and average or ordinary people to make big goals, to accomplish big goals. As he put it to me, quote, "We shouldn't bemoan that we are not the church we were in the 1960s. Yes, we are small now, but maybe that is what we are called to be at this time," unquote. Her vision for the United Church of Canada is to help members connect more deeply with their faith, to get to know each other better in a polarized and divided world, to continue to speak out for peace and justice, and to let go of the past and embrace a future of being small. And she cited the example of Jesus, who died and was resurrected to a new way of life. And she suggested that can be true for the United Church as well. She put it this way to me, quote, "We also need to die to our old way of being church to see if we can be something new and part of something bigger. We need to be open to the new ways God is moving." Now, the United Church isn't the only Protestant church facing steep decline in members. The Anglican Church is facing the same thing. It had 1.3 million members in the 1960s, and today the church rolls show there are about 300,000 people affiliated with that denomination. And at the current rate of decline, the church's statisticians suggest that there won't be any Anglicans left in Canada by 2040.
So what is the Anglican Church doing, or how are they responding to this?
Well, I also had a chance to speak to its new primate, or leader, Shane Parker, who was formerly the Bishop of Ottawa, and he's been given a mandate to make deep changes. This includes reducing the size of the church's organizational structure and reviewing the number of staff who work for the the National Church, the Anglican Church. Some people have pointed out that although the Anglican Church of Canada has lost 75% of its members since the 1960s, it still has 100% of its structures, and that's just not sustainable. And when I asked Parker about the need for change, he said he wants to help the Anglican Church adapt to 21st century trends. As he put it, quote, "The glory days of Anglicanism in Canada are in the past," unquote. And like for the United Church, he said the denomination has the temptation of being stuck in the past, back in a time when churches were full and the mentality was if you build it, they will come. And it happened. It just doesn't happen anymore. Parker's goal is to help Anglicans see themselves as a smaller church that learns how to speak into a pluralistic society where there are people from many different religions and from no religions at all.
So what are your thoughts on this, John, as someone who watches religion in Canada?
Well, it's easy to feel like things are failing and falling apart and everything's depressing, especially since every Christian denomination is feeling the pain. They're losing members, and the number of Canadians who identify as Christians is now below 50% for the first time. It's 44% in this country. And it's easy then to feel bad and listen to critics who say that this is the fault of churches becoming too liberal or too progressive. And yes, that did play a role in some people leaving the United Church and the Anglican churches for more conservative denominations. But as I said before, it's mostly due to demographics. We just don't have as many babies, as many young people anymore. And that has had an impact on everything in society, including those churches. And instead of feeling like it's a failure, maybe a different way to frame the situation is to think of this as a time when something is dying, but something new is happening. The old way of doing church is going away, and something new is taking its place. So maybe the old season of traditional denominations and churches and services with a sermon and some songs is coming to an end. And if that's true, then the question might be, well, what's going to replace it? And the answer is, nobody knows. We just don't know yet. And then I think back to the book of Ecclesiastes and what the writer there said when he put it this way: "To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven." And maybe there's a new season coming for Christianity in Canada today.
What stories are we missing? I can't wait to meet you. Communities in Focus. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for details.
And tomorrow, the Information Radio team will be broadcasting live from OCN from 6 to 8:30 a.m. They are in the community on the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. It's going to give the show a unique perspective and allow for community members there to talk about what Orange Shirt Day means to them. So tune in to Information Radio tomorrow morning. the team is broadcasting live from Opaskwayak Cree Nation. It is going to be a really interesting show on this National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, which is tomorrow. So tune in to Information Radio then. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in for Marcy Marcusa as the team is up in OCN, meeting folks and hearing stories that will be shared with you tomorrow. But still to come on the show, we are going to hear about ER wait times. They continue to put a strain on doctors and patients. Coming up, we're going to hear what Manitoba physicians are saying needs to change. That is coming up on the show. And then in our 8 o'clock hour, a smashed window, 2 missing paintings, one valued at over $8,000, and a thief still on the loose. We're going to take a closer look at the Winnipeg Police Service's hunt for an Exchange District art thief. Those conversations are coming up later on Information Radio. Looking at the weather forecast, it is 14 degrees here in Winnipeg. We are looking at a 30% chance of showers later in the day. We'll give you more updates on your weather forecast coming up on the show. And it's time now to head to our sports desk with Scott Regier. Good morning, Scott.
Hey, Chloe.
We have to start with baseball, where the Blue Jays have gone from worst to first.
Yeah, it's tough to believe, Chloe. Toronto finished 20 games behind New York for the division lead last season, at least when you consider how they held off the Yankees this time around, pipping them to the AL East wire yesterday. Of course, it wasn't easy, not with New York compiling an 8-game winning streak down the stretch. But when it mattered most, Toronto did its best as well, claiming their final 4 games, including that blowout yesterday of Tampa Bay. Alejandro Kirk paced the Jays with 2 homers and 6 runs batted in. And a group of relievers capably finished off what Kevin Gossman started on the mound. Here's Gossman.
A lot of excitement. Obviously, we kind of put ourselves in a hole. We had to win the last 4 games, but, we did it. Living here, being in Toronto for as long as I have, I know how much everybody still talks about the 15 and 16 teams. So, to win the division here means a little bit more. So, just really excited that we were able to do it.
A decade ago, Chloe, it was the parrot-walking Edwin Encarnacion and the bat-flipping Jose Bautista.
Yes.
Remember that? Leading Toronto
I do.
as far as the American League Championship Series. This time around, it'll be a less star-heavy Jays outfit, trying to go one better to make it through to the World Series. And their pursuit of that continues Saturday when Toronto hosts either the Red Sox or possibly the Yankees in the AL Division Series. Can't wait for that.
I love when an athlete has such a good game, they still get a standing ovation when they strike out.
Yeah, that's true. Alejandro Kirk yesterday.
Yeah,
right.
just incredible game for him. We're going to head over to golf, where Team Europe came out on top at a heated Ryder Cup.
Yeah, especially heated when Rory McIlroy was playing, Chloe. The world number 2 was public enemy number 1 for that crowd in New York. They reminded him of his missed putt at last year's U.S. Open. They made fun of his height. They mocked his Irish heritage, and then they went after his wife. Someone threw a beer at her at one point. McIlroy handled all of this, Chloe, with aplomb, losing just 1 of his 5 matches, and then he let loose.
This should not be what is acceptable in the Ryder Cup. I think golf should be held to a higher standard than what was seen out there this week. Golf has the ability to unite people. Golf teaches you very good life lessons. It teaches you etiquette. It teaches you how to play by the rules. It teaches you how to respect people. And, sometimes this week we didn't see that.
The culprits, McIlroy noted, were the minority in a crowd mostly made up of respectful fans. But McIlroy did wonder aloud, Chloe, why so few of those fans were cheering on American and world number 1 Scotty Scheffler, choosing instead to heckle his competition. The next Ryder Cup, come 2027, should have a very different ambience. It will be played in Ireland.
Oh, all right. So, Scott, what else stood out for you from a very busy sports weekend?
Yeah, it was. The Bombers' demolition of Hamilton, which sees them in 3rd place now, tied with BC. And, of course, the Rugby Women's World Cup final, where Canada scored first but couldn't hold on in a loss to England. Still, the 2nd place finish, Chloe, given the team got about a 10th of the funding their opponents received, was pretty remarkable. Here's fly half Alex Tessier.
I think what we've accomplished this World Cup is very powerful, especially for rugby in Canada. We've got so many messages from schools, from young girls, and then now that like the broadcast is becoming more and more on our TVs back in Canada, it goes a long way. And I'm just so pleased that people get to watch us and by doing what we want on the field. And I know it inspired so many generations, and so I'm very pleased for that.
Quite a time for women's rugby in this country. Remember, Canada won silver in sevens at the Olympics. Now, if they can just get a little more government funding, good thing maybe then that Prime Minister Carney was at that stadium in London on Saturday.
Thank you, Scott.
You bet.
That is Scott Regier with CBC Sports. Time now for your CBC local news.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is 14 degrees. Beautiful start today. Lots of sunshine, but we will see some clouds move in this afternoon. Slight chance of a late day shower and a risk of a thunderstorm. Cooler today, a high of 24, still well above seasonal. A Winnipeg boxing club says one of its fighters died after suffering a medical emergency during his match at a charity fight over the weekend. Robert Boyko was part of the corporate challenge portion of the Melee Gala at Club Regent Event Centre. The 54-year-old was a member of United Boxing Club. Boxing Canada Executive Director Christopher Lindsay says the death is tragic.
We don't have things like this happen often in our sport. I mean, I haven't been involved all that long, but, you know, in talking with other people who have been around for tens of years and talking to the officials who are on site, this is the first time they've experienced anything like this.
United Boxing Club says Boyko helped motivate and inspire others. The club also says medical support at the event acted quickly and they are not aware of any failures in safety protocols. The head of a Winnipeg personal care home says fixing long-term care will help reduce emergency wait times. Reports posted online by Manitoba Health show the number of patients waiting in hospital for a personal care home bed reached a 5-year high for 6 weeks straight this summer. Saul and Clarabelle Simpkin Centre CEO Lori Cerquetti says ensuring care homes are set up to care for people with complex needs and enhancing home care will help free up hospital space.
I don't think there's been that many beds added to this system, and it doesn't seem to be keeping up with demand based on what we're seeing as far as people waiting in the hospital, people waiting in the community to come to a care home. And maybe it's not just the number of personal care home beds, it's also how do we set people up to be successful and stay in their homes longer.
Cerquetti also says rapid response teams going into personal care homes for falls or stitches could help reduce stress on emergency rooms. An honor song, drumming and prayers. Muslim and Indigenous people came together yesterday ahead of tomorrow's National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, or Orange Shirt Day. The Islamic Social Services Association hosted the gathering at the Canadian Mennonite University. Lawrence Sutherland of Peguas First Nation hopes it helps people understand the impacts of the residential school system.
If they start looking at the truth of all the things what happened to us and how things are sharing and coming out, and things that we have to deal with, and them too, they have to deal with a lot of this stuff. So learning how to help themselves spiritually, physically, and mentally, and as we go along, we start to understand who we are.
The event also honored children in Gaza who have been impacted by the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. Winnipeg police call it a case of road rage. A 35-year-old man was assaulted Saturday afternoon at Broadway and Donald. Officers say he and a 27-year-old man got out of their vehicles and started arguing. Police say the 35-year-old was punched multiple times and fell to the ground. Officers say the 27-year-old got a pair of brass knuckles from his vehicle and continued hitting the victim and the victim's vehicle. The victim suffered minor injuries. The suspect was pulled over a few blocks away and was arrested. He faces numerous charges, including assault and possessing crack cocaine for the purpose of trafficking. A third candidate has joined the race for the leadership of the federal NDP.
The NDP isn't a regional party.
We are Canada's party. We were built by farmers and urban workers coming together, and we need to reconnect with both.
Alberta MP Heather McPherson. McPherson represents the riding of Edmonton-Strathcona and launched her leadership bid yesterday, joining Avi Lewis and Eve Engler in the campaign to replace Jagmeet Singh. Singh lost his seat in the April federal election and resigned as leader. A fourth candidate, Rob Ashton, is expected to join the race later this week. The NDP's leadership convention is set for March in Winnipeg. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. Bad Bunny will perform at next year's Super Bowl. The Puerto Rican singer and rapper will headline the halftime show at the National Football League's big game. Bad Bunny already has won 3 Grammy Awards and collaborated with Canadian rap star Drake on the song Mia. The Super Bowl happens February 8th, just outside San Francisco. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That is CBC's Heather Wells. Show director Abby Adiemi joins us now for a look at your weather forecast. Good morning.
Good morning once again, Chloe. We're still seeing clear skies for most of the regions. A warm and breezy afternoon on the way, especially for the southern regions. Looking at conditions in Winnipeg and the rest of the Red Valley region this morning. Mainly clear skies, 14 degrees right now. Sunshine already on its way. That would carry through the morning. Then we'll see a mix of sun and clouds and a slim chance of showers late afternoon. The winds will shift easterly and becoming breezy by the noon period. We'll see temperatures climb to a high of 24. Similar conditions we're seeing for the Pembina Valley region, warming up to 24 later today. We're seeing temperatures around 10 degrees more than Winkler, Alton and Morris down to the U.S. border. Now heading west to Brandon and the rest of the Westman region, we're looking at 11 degrees at this time. Clear skies also. Sunshine continues through the morning with a few clouds later on. We'll see temperatures push up to around 23, 24, and then some clear conditions again into the overnight period. In the Parkland region, from Dauphin all the way down to Russell and surrounding areas, we're seeing a cool start, 4 degrees right now. Clear conditions we have. The sun will dominate the day and then the winds will become breezy from the east later. Temperatures warm up quickly to 22 for that part of the province. Around Gimli and the rest of the Interlake region, we're looking at 13 and 14 degrees at this time, depending on where you are. A calm start, I would say. The morning will be sunny also before we see a mix of sun and clouds develop later on. There's a slim chance of showers towards late in the afternoon. Breezy easterly winds will develop by midday and temperatures will warm up to 23 later. For the power, Flin-Flon surrounding areas, clear morning, 7 degrees at this time. We spotted fog patches there. That's lifting. Then that would give way to a mix of sun and clouds in the afternoon. Highs would climb to 24. Thompson and surrounding communities, we're seeing a chilly start, -2 there at this time. Partly cloudy skies. Some foggy conditions still spotted there. That should clear as you get into the morning. You warm up to 17 degrees today, and tonight will stay partly cloudy. Now tracking it further north into Churchill and the York region, we're seeing 7 degrees. The sun already making its appearance there. That would burn off the fog you see there. Skies will stay clear. By the afternoon period, you see a mix of sun and clouds, and then you cool off to around 10 degrees, mainly cloudy into the overnight period. So it's more like a calm and sunny fall day across the province. Now, talking about traffic, yes, we're in that 7 o'clock hour, steady traffic, but the traffic already building in the typical areas for the rush hour volumes. Construction will start to slow things down later as you get deeper into the rush hour. We're seeing late closures northbound Sherbrooke between Ellis and Sargent, and also street maintenance going on southbound on Carlton between Portage and St. Mary for the same reason. Elsewhere, just watch out for those lane reductions on Route 90, ongoing construction work on Archibald through Provencher, and the regular closures that you'll find around regions also. But you see anything, you can call us on the commuter line 788-3093.
Thank you very much, Abby. That is CBC's Abby Adiemi. The time is 7:39. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in for Marcy Marcusa. Tomorrow is the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, a day which remembers those impacted by the residential school system. Since the very first Orange Shirt Day in 2021, 13-year-old Darian Hidalgo of Rolling River First Nation has been dancing to remember and honor the children who never made it home. This year, he has been selected to be the head male dancer by the Southern Chiefs organization for the 5th annual Orange Shirt Day Healing Walk and Powwow. And Darian is here in studio today with his father, Daniel Hidalgo. Welcome to you both. Good morning.
Hi. Hey, good morning.
Good morning. Darian, you've been dancing since you were very young, I've heard. Do you remember when you first learned about the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation?
Yeah, when I first learned, I was in shock because it was so sad to hear about all the kids that weren't able to come home and how their families must have felt. So I felt like honored to be able to be a part of these events and dance for them.
When did you decide that dancing was the right way to honor these children and this history?
Well, when my great-grandma passed away, I felt like I needed to be more in touch with my culture. And my dad introduced me to dancing, and it's just been going on from there.
What was that like, introducing dancing?
Well, for me, it was just really imperative as a parent to make sure that my son had some sort of ties to his cultural identity, kind of know who he is, his familial lineage, but also just like we come from Winnipeg and Indigenous people are here and they're thriving. And so for him, it was important to have him a part of that. So he knows who he is and he was enjoying it and he received it well. And so that was the biggest thing.
What is it like for you to watch him dance?
I think the word proud is the understatement.
Proud dad.
Every time I see him, sometimes I tear up, which is a little shocking, and other times I'm just like enamored with the confidence that he displays from such a young age. And when these opportunities present themselves, it's just like a testament to the work that he's put in and the skills that he's crafting. And it's an honor to watch and invest in my child, and he's my pride and joy.
Darian, when did you find out that you would be leading the March and Powwow tomorrow?
I found out in about August. My dad had told me, and he was very excited to tell me. And I was kind of shocked. I didn't really expect it. And then I was very proud.
What does it mean to you to be in that position?
It means a lot because I'm showing kids that like truth and reconciliation is a time to remember those kids who were taken from their families and never got to grow up or go back to see their moms and dads. So it's just like very exciting and thrilling to be able to be in that position.
Tell me a bit about the dance that you practice. You're a grass dancer, is that correct?
Yeah.
What does the dance look like? What does it symbolize?
So grass dancing, it symbolizes healing and to prepare. So before, in the old days, the grass dancers would go out first and they'd prepare the grass, so they'd flatten it and they would sway like the grass. They're tall like the grass. They go low like the grass. It was just a way to prepare for the other dancers to come along, and it was just like a form of leadership.
And you're leading this march and this powwow. So do you feel that connection in the type of dance you do and what you'll be doing tomorrow?
Yeah, I definitely felt the connection.
Beautiful. Daniel, why do you think it's so important to have Indigenous youth in particular leading these types of events?
Well, I think it's first and foremost important because it keeps the culture going. It's reclaiming the culture. It's showing pride in who you are, but also it gives the youth a sense of empowerment. And sometimes they don't get to feel that in other ways and spaces. And so that's the biggest piece right there. But it's informative. And so for future generations to take pride and show interest in their culture, maybe seeing young folks like Darian, do something that looks cool and kind of gives them some spotlight and is like physically exerting, but it's also getting a response from other people. Maybe that will incentivize them to want to take part as well. And the youth are the heartbeat of everything that we do, and they are literally our future. And I think that as adults, we have a responsibility to invest in them and to showcase their skills and to make them excited about the things that they're interested in. So,
and Darian, why do you think it's important for youth to use their voice when it comes to truth and reconciliation?
I think it's important for you, kids and youth to. What was the question again? Sorry.
Why do you think it's important for folks like you and other people your age to be talking about truth and reconciliation?
I think it's really important for kids my age to be talking about truth and reconciliation because a lot of kids were never able to use their voice and express their feelings and how they felt inside. So I think it's really important that youth are able to express themselves and do it in a positive way.
Do you get to do you talk about this with your friends? Like, do they know that you're going to be in this position leading the march and powwow tomorrow?
Yeah, they all know.
What do they say?
They're all like, they ask me about dancing and stuff and like when it started.
Right. What's it like to share that knowledge with them, to share your experience?
It's good because a lot of people don't really understand what truth and reconciliation is. So it's nice being able to explain it to them in a way they can understand. Amazing.
And it's coming from one of their friends, which is even better.
Yeah.
Very cool. What are you expecting for the day, Daniel? It's going to be a long one. It's going to be a busy one, but a very meaningful one. What are you looking forward to?
Well, since the initial Orange Shirt Day, all we've seen is growth. All we've seen is unity. We've seen people come together in a good way. We've seen the promotion of awareness. We've seen folks who are uninformed ask important questions and have a desire to learn more so that they can understand kind of what happened, but also it shapes the way that they see things moving forward. And so anything that promotes unity and love and empathy and compassion and just the city coming together in a better way, like I'm all for it. So I have really high expectations for this year. The SCO being in charge of it has been really, really nice, having their support and just seeing all the stuff that they have planned. How on the ball they are as an organization is tremendous. So my hat goes off to them. And, from here, I can only see it getting bigger and better.
And Darian, if there's any other 13-year-olds listening, what do you hope they understand and know about Orange Shirt Day? What do you hope they do tomorrow?
I hope they express their culture and their feelings and their voice, and they show who they truly are and what their culture represents.
Well, Darian, thank you. And Daniel, thank you for joining us today. All the best tomorrow. I'm really excited to hear about how it went. And thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having us.
That was grass dancer Darian Hidalgo and his father, Daniel Hidalgo. Darian will be leading the 5th annual Orange Shirt Day Walk and Powwow alongside Premier Wab Kinew tomorrow. The walk begins at 11 a.m. at the Forks, and the powwow takes place at the RBC Convention Centre at 1 p.m.
The National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. It's a day of hope, awareness, and reflection. A day that will show Canadians the path forward. Join CBC as we explore the rich and diverse cultures, voices, experiences, and histories of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people with a full day of programming, concerts, documentaries, and special events right across the country. September 30th on radio, TV, online, and on demand on CBC Listen and CBC Gem.
The time is 7:46, coming on 7:47. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in for Marcy Marcusa. Now, the third installment of a series we're calling Vital Signs. CBC Manitoba's look at the state of our healthcare system after nearly 2 years of NDP governance. There's been a lot of discussions surrounding wait times at emergency rooms in our province. And earlier this month, CBC reported wait times at St. Boniface Hospital and Health Sciences Centre were often so long that patients reported they were not getting the care they needed.
I just saw a guy that was here yesterday and he was in a gown. People are waiting forever. And when you got symptoms like I do right now, my head is killing me. And I'm dizzy. My eyes are foggy. And you don't see a doctor for 8 hours. You might as well go home and feel like that, where you're comfortable. But it's scary.
That's Arlene Kennington, who was at the Health Sciences Centre ER earlier this month. To get a better understanding of what is causing the long wait times in emergency rooms, CBC's Alana Cole spoke with Nichelle Desolé. She's a family physician in Nipawa and president of Doctors Manitoba.
We are hearing, stories of patients who have left without being seen and then come back with the deterioration of the issue that they appropriately were seeking advice for. I hear stories from my patients who had to attend a larger emergency room, maybe while traveling in Winnipeg or because of a transfer that's occurred in their care, and they tell us how long they wait and what the conditions are in those emergency rooms. What I hear from patients in those situations is never a criticism of the healthcare providers. They say everyone was amazing. Everyone was doing the best they could with what they have. And the patients see this. And, I think that really validates how our members are feeling. But they say, there's just not enough and the system isn't working.
What are the issues that you're hearing from members
What's causing some of these longer wait times? What are the things that you're hearing?
So ER wait times are they're like a signal of the rest of the healthcare system, a canary in the coal mine. This represents a healthcare system that isn't currently equipped to meet patient needs. So, for example, we don't have enough family physicians. The family physicians that we do have don't have the resources that they need to provide timely, equitable access to the patients that they serve. If patients had improved access, first of all, had a family doctor and had great access to that family doctor, we would be more engaged in preventative care, early addressing of medical issues before it gets to the point that that person feels that they need or truly, is brought to the emergency room. We don't have enough community programs and resources to support people in the community. And the ER ends up being the backup plan. So, for example, home care is incredibly valuable. This allows patients to have continuity of care and early identification of issues that could potentially be dealt with outside of an emergency room or a large hospital. We don't have enough personal care home spaces. And so if someone's health or frailty reaches a level that they cannot manage at home, of course we want them to come to the emergency room if there's no other options, but then that's not a sustainable solution. No one wants to live in the emergency room. So having more of those community-based resources to get people what they need when they need it is going to support the potential demand on the emergency room. We know that the emergency rooms and urgent care centers that we have are still short-staffed. It's great to have, the building, the infrastructure, but you need the bodies to staff it. So when we know that we're short nurses and we know that we're short doctors, having more places to go isn't really going to solve the problem in terms of wait times. And then finally, we need more hospital bed capacity. People are always going to be seen in order of priority and urgency in the ER. But if that person is sick enough or needing specific care to the point that they can't go home, there is nowhere else for them to go often from the emergency room. So everything backs up from the hospital. People who should be admitted onto a medical ward, that whole thing backs up into the emergency room. So that is why I'm saying that the emergency room is simply a reflection of everything going on in the healthcare system in general. There might be a little bit of a temptation to blame lower acuity patients for presenting to the emergency room for what some people might feel are unnecessary reasons. But I would argue that this is not the problem. These people are doing what they need to do because they don't have any other options, and we cannot fault them for that. And these are not the people that are contributing necessarily to wait times. These people get the care that they're looking for and then go home. They're not contributing to that bed block, to that backlog. Certainly having other places for them to go is a great option, but they're not the source of the problem.
So what are the solutions that you're hearing from members that they'd like to see, or what Doctors Manitoba are advocating for to try to reduce some of those, to try to get at some of those issues that are leading to longer wait times in ERs?
We've got a record net increase in number of physicians registered and licensed in Manitoba. But there's a few things that aren't captured there. Of the number that have retired or left, what were the reasons behind that? How are we doing on retention? If physicians are leaving their practice, whether it's in the emergency room due to burnout or in family medicine or in a specialty practice, why are they leaving? So we really have to focus on retention as part of recruitment. Further on the retention point, we know that of that net increase in physicians, a large portion of them or people who did not train here. Why are people that are trained in medicine in Manitoba not staying? Those people know the system here. What can they tell us about the system that they've experienced that has led them to look for other opportunities? And then, we're increasing medical school classes. We're, streamlining the process for physicians from other jurisdictions to come and work here, and all of those things are great. But the number one thing would be we need more doctors. We know that from our administrative burden work that, removing the time spent on things like sick notes and other work-related forms. The second thing I'm hearing from members is the bed block. That's what we're hearing in Emerge. If someone is, awaiting urgent surgery for a broken limb, they probably get a better rest on the ward instead of in the emergency room, where things tend to be a bit more bustling and noisy. So bed block is the number two thing I'm hearing. And as I mentioned before, there's so many pieces that play into that. Some of them are community-based, some of them are hospital-based.
Delay. The province tells CBC it has a team working to lower ER wait times. A joint statement from the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority and government says around 1,300 new frontline staff have been added, along with 240 fully staffed hospital beds. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in for Marcy Marcusa. It's time now to head to news headlines with CBC's Heather Wells.
Good morning. A Winnipeg boxing club says one of its fighters died after suffering a medical emergency during his match at a charity fight over the weekend. Robert Boyko was part of the corporate challenge portion of the Melee Gala at Club Regent Event Centre. The 54-year-old was a member of United Boxing Club. The club says Boyko helped motivate and inspire others. We're going to hear more from the boxing officials coming up. Indigenous and Muslim groups came together yesterday ahead of tomorrow's National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, or Orange Shirt Day. The Islamic Social Services Association hosted the gathering at the Canadian Mennonite University. Lawrence Sutherland from Peguis First Nation hopes it helps people understand the impacts of the residential school system. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 8:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That is CBC's Heather Wells. Currently, we are sitting at 14 degrees here in Winnipeg at the Forks. We'll see sunny skies this morning, then a mix of sun and cloud with 30% chance of showers late this afternoon. Wind becoming east 20, gusting to 40 near noon with a forecasted high of 24. Still to come on the show, a Canadian artist says she's still searching for answers a month after her painting was stolen from the window of a Winnipeg art gallery.
When you paint something, you know you're going to lose something, but you trust that it's going to be loved and a part of somebody's life. So it's disconcerting not knowing what happened to the painting.
We're going to hear from Canadian artist Marianne Thompson coming up on Information Radio. As well, we're going to check in with Marcy Marcusa. She is in Opaskwayak Cree Nation, where CBC Manitoba is for our next round of Communities in Focus. They will be broadcasting live from OCN tomorrow on the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. So we will check in with Marcy and the rest of the Information Radio team who is up in Opaskwayak. We'll get all the details and hear some of the stories that they've been hearing from folks there. Those stories and much more to come in the next hour of Information Radio. World Report is next.
Today on Q.
Singing is a heavy responsibility.
You got to imagine that the worst thing that can happen to a singer is they lose their voice. That's what happened to the Montreal artist Patrick Watson. He'll be here to talk to you about how his voice came back, about his brand new album, and how working with Leonard Cohen taught him what a good singer actually is.
He's a great singer because each word weighs 1,000 pounds.
Q with Tom Power, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
Canadians go to the emergency room for urgent treatment, but a lot of them end up leaving before they're seen by a healthcare worker, giving up after waiting for hours and hours. How communities are fighting for more ER doctors and nurses, coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. U.S. President Donald Trump is hosting Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House. Trump says a deal to end the war in Gaza is close, but today's meeting comes on the heels of Netanyahu's blistering speech before the UN General Assembly. Netanyahu spoke out against nations that are recognizing a Palestinian state. Canada is among those countries. Willie Lowry joins me now from Washington. And Willie, what do we know about the plan from the White House?
Well, the 21-point plan reportedly calls for an end to fighting and the release of all hostages within 48 hours of the sides agreeing to the deal. Now, Israel would then begin a phased withdrawal from the Gaza Strip. Under the plan, Hamas would have no role in any future governance of the enclave, and Gaza would at first be administered by Palestinian-led technocrats under the guidance of an international body created in consultation between the U.S., Arab, and European countries. Now, the plan does allow for the possibility of a Palestinian state at an undetermined time in the future, and that's something that Netanyahu recently rejected.
What is at stake for Israel and the U.S.?
Well, for the U.S., it appears to be about saving face. President Trump came into office confident he could end this conflict on day one, and of course hasn't, at least not yet. And he says he's a deal maker and has already ended 7 conflicts by his count. But the big ones, the wars in Gaza and Ukraine, have so far eluded him, and this would be a major achievement. For Israel, this is a war that has persisted now for nearly 2 years. And this deal would see the hostages, there are believed to be around 20 living still in Gaza, returned home, and that's a major objective of Israel's. Hostages have become a real flashpoint in Israeli politics, with deep dissatisfaction among many over the government's handling of the war and of securing their captive citizens' release. This deal, if it does go through, would allow Netanyahu to say mission accomplished in a way. But again, deals have been close in the past, and it's the details, the fine print, that often scuttles them. And details for this plan remain somewhat light.
Thank you, Willie.
My pleasure.
The CBC's Willie Lowry in Washington. The Canadian government says the Bishnoi gang is now listed as a terrorist group under the criminal code. The Bishnoi gang operates primarily out of India, but it has a presence in Canada. The government says it engages in murder, shootings, arson, extortion, and intimidation. And last year, the RCMP accused the Indian government of using the Bishnoi gang to target Canadians who support Sikh separatism. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre and Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown have both called for this group to be listed as a terrorist entity. Now that it is, the government can freeze or seize any assets or property owned by the group in Canada. Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe is expected to attend a historic announcement in Isle-la-Crosse later today. Details are scarce, but tomorrow is the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, and Isle-la-Crosse was once home to one of Canada's oldest residential schools. Alexander Kwan has more.
For decades, the survivors of a residential school in northern Saskatchewan have been calling for justice. The school was located in the Métis community of Isle-la-Crosse. It operated for more than 100 years, with Métis and First Nations children forbidden from practicing their culture or speaking their language. School survivors were excluded from the Indian residential school settlements because it was determined the school did not qualify. The situation changed earlier this year when the federal government signed a $27 million agreement in principle. Michelle Leclerc, a vice president with Métis Nation Saskatchewan, spoke at the announcement in March.
In this settlement, Canada has sort of taken, say, we'll take 50% of the blame.
Saskatchewan needs to take the other 50%, and they need to compensate our survivors.
Now, further changes could be on the way, with an announcement scheduled for this morning. Métis Nation Saskatchewan has only said that the struggle for recognition and justice may be over. And with Premier Scott Moe scheduled to attend, it could mean another step forward in the push for reconciliation. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
Election results are in from Moldova's parliament. It is a victory for the pro-EU Party of Action and Solidarity and relief for Moldovans who are worried about Russian influence.
A lot of young people started to go vote, me included. I voted for the first time. And I think we have a bright future ahead of us.
Bravo. Russia is not doing a lot of good things. It's really bad.
This election was viewed as a geopolitical choice between a path to the European Union or drifting back into Moscow's fold. And although the data shows that pro-EU parties will hold a clear majority, this vote was not without controversy. Officials are accusing Russia of running a disinformation campaign, a large-scale vote-buying scheme, and of planning to incite riots around the election results. An attack on a Michigan church is being called a targeted act of violence. Police say a man shot at worshipers before setting the building on fire. At least 4 people are dead, 8 others are wounded, and up to 7 people have not been found. The CBC's Katie Simpson has the latest on the investigation.
And then we heard a big bang and it blew the doors in the church, and then everything after that was chaos.
Paula Macer was one of hundreds of worshipers inside the Grand Blancs Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints when the suspect launched his deadly attack, ramming a pickup truck with American flags on it into the main entrance of the building, exiting the vehicle armed with an automatic rifle, shooting toward anyone in his path. In those initial moments of terror, Police Chief William Rennie says there were acts of heroism by many of the adults inside that church.
They were shielding the children who were also present within the church, moving them to safety.
As this was happening, the gunman also managed to start a fire using gasoline as an accelerant. The flames grew so quickly it meant first responders could not get to everyone who needed help.
The FBI is now leading the investigation and is investigating this as an act of targeted violence.
FBI Special Agent in Charge Reuben Coleman says authorities identified the suspect as 40-year-old Thomas Jacob Sanford, a veteran of the U.S. Marines. He served 4 years and was deployed to Iraq in 2007. Police are pleading with the public not to speculate the motive as they are still investigating. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
Ontario's premier is known for making off-the-cuff remarks. Doug Ford has commented on all kinds of issues, including the justice system, and lawyers say sometimes he may be crossing a line. As Sarah McMillan reports, Ford has recently waded into some criminal cases that are before the courts.
This wasn't an accident.
When Doug Ford spoke earlier this month about a head-on collision that killed an Ontario father, the Premier didn't mince words.
It was a murder.
The accused is facing several charges, including dangerous driving causing death. He is not charged with murder, and the charges against him have not been tested in court.
It's inflammatory to the case, it prejudges the case, and it's inaccurate.
Adam Weisberg is with the Criminal Lawyers Association. He says Ford should be more careful not to weigh in on cases that are before the courts. That fatal collision is just one recent example.
And once I'm on a roll now, did everyone hear about the story in Lindsay?
Last month, unprompted by reporters, Ford chimed in on an assault case in Lindsay, Ontario. And there's a high-profile example in 2021 when Umar Zamir, charged at the time with first-degree murder, was released on bail. Ford called it unacceptable. Zamir was ultimately found not guilty. Reporters asked Ford about his comments after the verdict last year.
At that time, I had limited information.
Lawyers say that's the problem. Weighing in without knowing the facts can contribute to misinformation, and
it can raise issues like the prosecution itself being compromised.
Lawyer Shakir Rahim with the Canadian Civil Liberties Association says there's also the risk of prejudicing a jury pool. He points to cases in Quebec and Ontario in the 80s and 90s that were nearly derailed because of comments from politicians. The Premier's office did not respond to our request for comment. Sarah McMillan, CBC News, Toronto.
Country icon Dolly Parton is canceling her upcoming concerts in Las Vegas.
Working 9 to 5. What a way to make a living, barely getting by.
The 79-year-old says she will no longer be able to work her shows because of ongoing health challenges. Parton was scheduled to perform between December 4th and the 13th, and she has been forced to postpone those shows until next September. The country star says she will need a few medical procedures, and that means dialing back on her work.
Ahead, but the boss won't seem to let me. I swear sometimes that man is out to get me.
That is World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
They let you dream just to watch them shatter. You're just a step on the boss man's ladder.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in this morning for Marcy Marcusa. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. 89.3 FM, 990 AM on YouTube or anywhere on your CBC Listen app. Thank you for joining us this morning. Coming up on the show, we'll check in with Marcy Marcusa in Opaskwayak Cree Nation, where CBC Manitoba is for our next round of Communities in Focus. The Information Radio team is broadcasting live tomorrow from OCN. As well, a smashed window, 2 missing paintings, one valued at over $8,000, and a thief still on the loose. Coming up, we'll take a closer look at the Winnipeg Police Service's hunt for an Exchange District art thief, and we'll hear from the artist herself. But first, it's time for news headlines with Heather Wells. Good morning.
Good morning. There is going to be a new appeal in the more than 50-year-old manslaughter case of Russell Woodhouse. It was ordered this morning by Canada's Justice Minister Sean Fraser. Fraser says it is the first time this type of review has happened for someone who has already died. Woodhouse died in 2011. He and 3 other men, all from Pinemutang First Nation, were convicted in the 1973 killing of Tin Fong Chan in downtown Winnipeg. Woodhouse's co-accused have already been exonerated. The head of a Winnipeg personal care home says fixing long-term care will help reduce emergency wait times. Reports posted online by Manitoba Health show the number of patients waiting in hospital for a personal care home bed reached a 5-year high for 6 straight weeks this summer. We're going to hear more in our next local news coming up at 8:30.
Thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you.
That is CBC's Heather Wells. Hello, and thank you to the team on the show this morning. Joshua Tyfair is our technical producer. Brad Lillies is in charge of our YouTube live stream. And Abby Adiemi is our show director this morning. Good morning, Abby.
Good morning again, Chloe. We're still enjoying the bright and mild start across the province. Sunshine already making its appearance across board. We're going to see warm air through the day. A few southern spots may notice showers later, but overall it's shaping up to be like a beautiful Monday. Winnipeg right now, it is mainly sunny outside, hovering 14, 15. Wherever you are in the city, expect the sunshine with clouds moving in the afternoon. We do have a slim chance of showers in the forecast, and temperatures will climb to around 24. And that's what we'll see in most of the southern regions. Up north, we're still seeing Thompson below 0 this morning, and other regions seeing 7 and 8 degrees. But remember, rush hour traffic already building. Construction will slow things down in a few key spots that you already know about. Lane closure, Sherbrooke, Carlton, Route 90. We have Archibald Provincial, but no Jamaican. Regular construction is happening there, so take that into consideration. Plan ahead. You see anything in traffic? 788-3093.
A shattered window, missing art valued at nearly $9,000, and the thieves are still at large. It might sound like the plot of a Hollywood movie, but for Canadian artist Marianne Thompson, it's all too real. In August, She got a message no artist wants to get. Her painting, Lady of the Lake, had been stolen from a small Winnipeg gallery. According to police, thieves broke one of the windows at Warehouse Artworks and took Marianne's piece, as well as another by a different artist. Where the art is and who took it is still a mystery that they're still trying to solve. Marianne, who is based in Massachusetts, joins us now over Zoom. Good morning, Marianne.
Good morning.
What a story this is. I can't imagine how it felt to get this news. What was your first reaction?
Well, I mean, I was kind of dumbfounded. It's just not something you expect, and especially because the painting doesn't really have any value in and of itself. So it's hard, to me it does, and I think it's worth what it cost, but I can't imagine why anyone would try to resell it. And it's also it's hard for my brain to understand why.
This sounds like an odd question, but I'm curious, does it at all feel flattering? Yeah.
I can't deny that there's the result of it is all this national press, which is, it's lemonade out of lemons, I guess. But I kind of, when I paint because I, love to paint. And so it's fame and trying to be a successful, have a successful career has never been my focus. So I would prefer the painting just be with someone that loves it through traditional measures to get that way.
Right. For it to be bought rather than stolen.
Yeah, that's more what I'm interested in. But I can't deny that there's, an upside to all of it, I guess.
I want to talk about this piece, Lady of the Lake. I have a photo of it in front of me here. It's gorgeous. It depicts the Grace Anne II, or the second, a wooden yacht that sailed the waters of Lake of the Woods for decades. Tell me more about this painting. What do this boat and lake mean to you?
Well, they mean everything to me. I don't get to be there through the most of the year, but I've been my family's had this small island on the lake since 1926. And the Grace Anne showed up only a few years later on Lake of the Woods. And my whole, my father's family, they would get excited when it came into the bay, the Grace Anne. And my whole life, I see it in the distance and I'll go and stand on that part of the island and just watch it go by because it's so beautiful and it purrs. It doesn't make noise. It purrs. And it has, for a big ship like that, there's hardly any wake. It represents everything that I love about, the lake and craftsmanship. Oh, that's my video. So, but it's so deeply, the lake and the ship are so integral to who I am now that if I have a major test that I have to take or something, my panic dream, the nightmare that I can't control is that I've been given the keys to the ship and I have to bring it safely to port, and I try, but I crash it.
So this ship is ingrained into your being.
It is. It's a deep part of me. Breakup, I have dreams about. It's always about crashing the Grace, which is probably why it took me so long to venture to paint it. Because my experience with it is failure.
Well, you painted it beautifully, the movement in the water, you can see that idea that it's not creating a major wake, or it doesn't, I guess it doesn't look loud. It's just this nice, soft kind of water movement that's coming from it.
Yeah. Well, and it has, the whole paintings is sort of surprisingly quiet for me. It has the reflections and it has, there's this sense of motion, but it is this sort of peaceful, calm scene.
Yeah, and our viewers on YouTube can kind of look at your process of this, and there's a video that you took of the Grace Anne kind of just purring through the waters there, as you said. For folks who don't have an appreciation or understanding of the process of a painting like this, how much work goes into making something like this?
This was probably 3 weeks of work, and normally I'm much more I don't bother with a grid. And I don't often even bother with a sketch beforehand. I just something, it happens extemporaneously. But ship boats are very difficult to draw because they have curves sort of going in all different directions as you go up. It's very easy to fail painting a boat. And I loved her so much that I wanted to get every little detail right. So I made a grid. I had to do some algebra to transfer the picture that I had taken from the video that I shot. Yeah, from the smaller size to a larger panel.
Right.
And then with each like little square, you're focusing on trying to copy it. So it's not, I think sometimes people will like project the thing on their canvas and then trace it out. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to still make it difficult and like still need my eye. But I also wanted to make sure that every detail was going to be correct of the boat.
You spent a lot of time with this painting and with a subject that means a lot to you. How do you kind of reconcile with that and the fact that it's missing?
Well, I mean, the thing about being an artist is that you have to let go of everything that you love. So I had already resigned myself to the fact that it was going to be out of my control, but I did not foresee it. Often I like to know who a painting goes to, at least loosely. Like I know that they, if they love the lake and there's a tree that reminds them of their tree, and I get the personal connection, and it makes it okay that the painting is off living a life with someone else. But it's harder to process this one. But it's also it's interesting and curious, and I wish I knew whether it was like for some deluded person who thought they could get money for it, or if it was for love, like someone figured, well, they love the painting, but they can't afford it, so they'll steal it, and I would get the insurance money, so it would be win-win. I don't know.
Yeah.
I knew.
Are you being kept up to date on the investigation? Are you in contact with Winnipeg Police at all?
No, I haven't been in contact with them. And I learned about this in August. It happened in August. And then it just sort of, nothing was happening. I was just resigning myself to the fact that it was gone and no one would ever find it. And so I don't know why it, suddenly became, people were suddenly looking for it, but I'm grateful that happened, because I thought about like writing to the Free Press or just to ask people to be on the lookout. So I forgot your question.
No, that's okay. Yeah, just I guess I'm gonna end with if you could give a message to whoever has your painting, whoever has Lady of the Lake in their possession, what would you say to them?
I would say I hope that they took it for love and not for money. And I hope that they could find it in their hearts to somehow get it back. It's sadder because the Gray Sand isn't on the lake anymore, as far as I know. And so the loss of that is big to me, but to lose, I think this is definitely one of the better paintings of it that exists. So, and I'd say that not out of vanity, but just out of knowing the amount of effort that went into it and the reaction that it tends to get from people who know it.
Well, Marianne, I hope that we get to speak again about some better news, but I appreciate you joining us this morning.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you speaking with me.
That's Marianne Thompson, a Canadian artist based in Massachusetts, painter, artist behind Lady of the Lake, and as we mentioned, police are still investigating the theft.
The National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. It's a day of hope, awareness, and reflection. A day that will show Canadians the path forward. Join CBC as we explore the rich and diverse cultures, voices, experiences, and histories of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people with a full day of programming, concerts, documentaries, and special events right across the country. September 30th on radio, TV, online, and on demand on CBC Listen and CBC Gem.
And our local programming here at CBC Manitoba is also dedicated to the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, especially on Information Radio. Tomorrow morning, Marcy Marcusa and Corey Funk are in Opaskwayak Cree Nation. It's part of our Communities in Focus initiative, but they're also broadcasting live from OCN tomorrow morning. And we've actually reached Marcy in Opaskwayak this morning. Good morning, Marcy.
Hi there, Chloe. How are you?
I am doing well. What's it been like so far? You've been there for a couple of days.
Well, you know what? We haven't. Corey and I just flew in last night, but our team has been here since Friday. So let me tell you a little bit about Communities in Focus if you're listening this morning and you're wondering. First of all, good morning from northern Manitoba. What a beautiful morning we have with the sun coming up on this September 29th morning. Today, a special day, and they're planning, and tomorrow, a more even special day, as it's going to be Truth and Reconciliation Day or Inshirt Day. So Corey and I just got here last night. We flew into OCN. If you've never been up here to Opaskwayak, we are just about 6 hours north of Winnipeg. The Paw is right up the Highway 10, just over the bridge here. We're alongside the beautiful Saskatchewan River, and then there's Clearwater Lake. Now, behind me, you're going to see some teepees. Don't be fooled. We just got here last night. We're actually outside our hotel. Come on over here this way, Corey. You can see that. Sometimes they actually rent this out for people to stay in. And I'm only mentioning that because Opaskwayak actually is a very forward-thinking community. They have a community plan to increase tourism in this area. They also have a plan to increase sustainability, to grow things like education, land-based learning for the students. It's a very vibrant nation. There's about 6,800 people that live in Opaskwayak Cree Nation, or band members rather. About 50-50, about 3,000 people live here on the First Nation. So you can see behind me probably, you can get the highway in the shot there, Cor. This is Highway 10, so that's the highway I was talking about that goes all the way to the Paw. And just beautiful treed, classic northern Manitoba, but you can see, very paved, very developed, because Opaskwayak is just next door to the Paw here. So it's a very interesting place, and I think it's going to be an interesting place to explore what truth and reconciliation really means, Chloe.
Tell us more about some of your plans, both tomorrow and as your time in Opaskwayak continues.
Well, I'm pretty excited because I was mentioning how progressive OCN is. Now, one of the things that I've learned even just since we've been here, and that is because I was on a plane full with students who were at the Bomber game, and they were coming back. They're from OCN. So I was talking to them and to one of their instructors who's been involved in land-based learning for years. We've been in other northern Manitoba communities for September 30th with CBC's Communities in Focus. And when we were in, for example, St. Teresa Point, the Island Lake area, they were just sort of talking about developing more and more land-based learning. Here in OCN, they've been at it since 2012 in earnest. So they have really deep programs, and the kids have been doing a lot of that already, out fishing and trapping, learning about hunting and cultural ways. So we're going to learn more about that, but we're also going to learn about something where they say that this is where every community is so different in Manitoba. They want more language learning to be happening here. And so whereas in Garden Hill First Nation in Manitoba, they actually had a lot of Cree speakers, here you hear sort of not as many. So they're trying to work on that. In fact, we can't show you this right now because it's just off camera, but there's a stop sign that says Kapichi. It may be pronounced, pardon me, Kapisi, I was told, which means stop in Swampy Cree, the dialect here. So you're starting to see different things. Tomorrow on the show, we're actually going to learn more about how they have a map project right now to rename everything with traditional Swampy Cree. So that's one of the things we're going to be learning about. We also, of course, tomorrow are going to be spending the day over at the Veterans Hall for our live show, and I'm really looking forward to it. We're going to be joined either in Veterans Hall or outside in a teepee that they're setting up. We'll have to see how that goes, by 3 generations of family from OCN. So imagine that one of the members has told us, her name's Stephanie, that she watches her son speak Swampy Cree to his grandfather, and she feels jealous because she can't do it. So that's that generation in the middle when we're talking about some of the impacts of what happened here and all over Canada because of the impact of residential schools. So tomorrow on the show, we're going to be meeting families. We're going to be taking to a ribbon skirt ceremony. We're going to be hearing some live drumming on our program. We're going to be hearing about something that Justice Sinclair said, the now late Justice Sinclair, first September 30th without him, about what his hopes were for all these calls to action. And people might recall him saying it's going to take 7 generations. You know, it took 7 generations of children that went through residential school. That's how many there were. And it's probably going to take that many for us to get out of this and really connect and become a better Canada. So we're going to hear from all kinds of people from OCN about what that means to them as they're they're on their path to reconciliation. And I really should mention that Felicia Adam will have a piece in our program tomorrow that's beautiful. She, this weekend, I mentioned our colleagues came up on Friday, Chloe. She is, of course, CBC Manitoba, a television reporter. She visited McKay Residential School. So that is a site about 10 kilometers north of here where we are in OCN. And that is on, as I mentioned, Fisher Island. Right now, all you see is the foundation from the school, some monuments. But last year, significantly, they believe they found remains on site. And so the community here is going to be involved in a breakfast there on the grounds tomorrow, which should be very moving. For Truth and Reconciliation Day, we will be there. They're calling it Ministikok. That is their project to try to reclaim the children, to try to honor them. And what's awesome is they do teaching there now. So imagine all those little Manitoba kids now standing on those grounds and asking questions like, why were they brought here? What happened? And all those simple questions that remind us of the tragic legacy of what happened in our country, but also the beautiful path forward which lies in the young people. So we have a show tomorrow. We are all over the area here, and we also have community hours in OCN.
Marcy, so looking forward to the show tomorrow and all the stories that are coming out of Communities in Focus. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Yes, and just a reminder, if you're listening or you're watching on YouTube this morning and you're here in OCN, come and see us. Our producer on the project, Nadia Kidwai, has office hours. That means that she is available just to sit and talk. We're here to listen and to find out what you want to share about this part of Manitoba. You can find out more about Communities in Focus at cbc.ca/Manitoba/communities.
Thank you so much, Marcy. Marcy Marcusa, as you know, host of Information Radio. And she mentioned, check out our website for more information on how to connect with our reporters. If you're in OCN, that's cbc.ca/Manitoba/community. Your CBC local news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:31, it is sunny, 13 degrees. We will see some clouds roll in this afternoon. Slight chance of a late day shower, maybe even a thunderstorm. And cooler than yesterday. Today's high is 24. A First Nations man who died in 2011 is a step closer to having his name cleared in Canada's first ever post-mortem conviction review. Federal Justice Minister Sean Fraser just made the announcement this morning. He ordered a new appeal in the manslaughter case of Russell Woodhouse. He and 3 other men, all from Pinemutang First Nation, were convicted in the 1973 killing of Ting Fong Chan in downtown Winnipeg. The review of Woodhouse's conviction found reasonable grounds there was a miscarriage of justice. Woodhouse's co-accused, including his brother Clarence, have already been exonerated. They are now seeking compensation for their wrongful convictions. A Winnipeg boxing club says one of its fighters died after suffering a medical emergency during his match at a charity fight over the weekend. Robert Boyko was part of the corporate challenge portion of the Melee Gala at the Club Regent Event Centre. The 54-year-old was a member of United Boxing Club. Boxing Canada Executive Director Christopher Lindsay says the death is tragic.
We don't have things like this happen often in our sport. I mean, I haven't been involved all that long, but, you know, in talking with other people who have been around for tens of years and talking to the officials who are on site, this is the first time they've experienced anything like this.
United Boxing Club says Boyko helped motivate and inspire others. The club also says medical support at the event acted quickly. They aren't aware of any failures in safety protocols. Dozens of people were in Winnipeg hospitals waiting for space in a personal care home over a 6-week period this summer, including 1 week where 89 hospital patients were waiting for a care home bed. That is according to weekly reports posted online by Manitoba Health. Doctors Manitoba President Dr. Nishal Desailly says shortages of personal care home beds, shortages of doctors, and bed capacity in hospitals contribute to long emergency waits.
ER wait times are they're like a signal of the rest of the healthcare system, a canary in the coal mine. This represents a healthcare system that isn't currently equipped to meet patient needs.
In a joint statement, the government and Winnipeg Regional Health Authority say they, quote, know emergency and urgent care wait times remain too long, which can be frustrating. The statement says the province has a team in place working to reduce bottlenecks, speed up admissions and discharges, and strengthen alternatives to emergency care. A third candidate is joining the race for the leadership of the federal NDP.
My name is Heather McPherson, and I am running to be the next leader of Canada's New Democratic Party.
Heather McPherson is an Alberta MP in the riding of Edmonton-Strathcona. She launched her leadership bid yesterday, joining Avi Lewis and Eve Engler in the campaign to replace Jagmeet Singh. Singh lost his seat in the spring federal election and resigned as leader. A fourth candidate, Rob Ashton, is expected to join the race later this week. The NDP Leadership Convention is set for March in Winnipeg. An honor song, drumming and prayers. Indigenous people and Muslims came together yesterday ahead of tomorrow's National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, or Orange Shirt Day. The Islamic Social Services Association hosted a gathering at Canadian Mennonite University. Lawrence Sutherland of Peguis First Nation hopes it helps people understand the impacts of the residential school system.
If they start looking at the truth of all the things what happened to us and how things are sharing and coming out, and things that we have to deal with, and them too, they have to deal with a lot of this stuff. So learning how to help themselves spiritually, physically, and mentally, and as we go along, we start to understand who we are.
The event also honored children in Gaza who've been affected by the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. And the Toronto Blue Jays have taken their first step toward the World Series.
Guerrero to Lauer, and they've done it. Are American League East Division champions for the first time in 10 years.
The Jays clinching the American League Eastern Division title yesterday with a 13-4 win over Tampa. As for who the Jays face in the divisional playoff series, it'll either be New York Yankees or the Boston Red Sox. Their wild card series gets underway tomorrow. You can find more news updated as it happens at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
And it looks like the party afterwards was pretty high energy.
Oh, lots of
word.
people very, very happy.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
That is CBC's Heather Wells. Abby Adeyemi joins us for one last look at your weather and traffic.
The southern part of the province warms up to 24, while we'll see 19 degrees in the northern part of the province today. Sunshine and some cool temperatures up north.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
And thank you to the whole team on the show. In the newsroom, Heather Wells, Joni Nicolou, Josh Crabb, Darren Bernhardt. Thank you to Abby Adeyemi, Joshua Ty-Fair, and Brad Lillies in Studio 15. Nellie Gonzalez, the show producer of Current Affairs. Leif Larson, senior producer of audio. I'm Chloe Friesen. Thank you for joining us this morning. The Current is next.